So hey guys. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys for giving a lot of love to my stories. I have made this video on your request. What if Naruto used Kamui Sharingan to become Harem King in high school DxD? Final part. This video is not for kids. I hope you guys understand my hint. So, without wasting your time, let's start the story. Naruto grinned in absolute glee as he walked over towards Kurama. The two bumped fists with each other, both still having massive grins on their faces. There were no words to describe how happy Naruto felt. It was like a child had just been reunited with his parents. You really had me worried, you fuzzball. Naruto tried to sound serious, but he just couldn't. Kurama kept grinning. I can imagine that. Looks like you've been doing well. Kurama mentioned rather offhandedly. Naruto chuckled before he promptly sat down on the ground, looking at Kurama with an expectant gaze. Explain. He simply said. Kurama sighed as the grin disappeared from his face, a serious expression now taking its place. He owed Naruto an explanation for everything that had happened. Even though Kurama didn't quite understand the whole situation himself, he tried to explain everything as best he could. Now before you start firing stupid questions at me, Kurama said as he raised one of his paws. No, I don't know how we got here. What I do know however is that Itachi was completely right in everything that he told you. Our world is gone, and there's no going back. Naruto felt that familiar tug at his heart again. The fact that his entire world was gone hurt him more than he expected. He felt like he had failed everybody. He couldn't even stop the infinite Tsukiyomi. Well, at least everyone had died experiencing their deepest desires and dreams. That didn't comfort Naruto though. He nodded towards Kurama, beckoning for him to continue. You know that Biju don't really die, right? Kurama asked. Naruto nodded in confirmation. Yes, you guys are just walking masses of chakra. If you get destroyed you'll just reform. Naruto stated. Kurama nodded, a small grin playing on his lips. He was happy to see that the boy had become a bit smarter, it would give him less trouble. So basically, I kind of died inside you. Naruto just blinked a few times before confusion made its way onto his face. You died inside me? How the hell does that even work? Naruto asked incredulously. You can only die when I die, right? And you don't really look dead to me, Kurama sighed. And he thought that explaining all of this wouldn't be troublesome. I don't know how that's supposed to work. But what I do know is that my chakra is now reforming, that's why you can't use it. Kurama explained. Naruto made an ah sound, having understood the situation. So how long will it take for you to reform your chakra completely? Naruto asked. Well, the Sharingan was an incredibly nice addition to his arsenal, Naruto hadn't mastered it yet and was more familiar with his Jinchuriki powers. It would certainly make things a lot easier if he would have access to Kurama's chakra again. It varies. It could take weeks, months, years, maybe the process is altered by the fact that we're in a different world. I have absolutely no idea. Kurama stated with a shrug. Naruto frowned in response. What you're basically trying to say is that you have no chakra at all now. Kurama sighed and shook his head. No, I didn't say anything like that. Well, it's still reforming, I already have some chakra. If you use it you'll be able to go up to your one-tailed form, but if you use my chakra while it's still reforming the process will only go slower. The chakra of the other Biju is completely gone however, so you can't access 6 Paths Age mode anymore. Kurama explained. This time it was Naruto's turn to sigh. He needed to at least be able to access his 4-tailed form to gain some kind of boost, and having lost his 6 Paths powers was also a big setback. I guess I'll have to avoid using your chakra for now then. Naruto concluded. But why didn't you approach me earlier? That's because your mindscape was occupied during the times I wished to talk to you. Kurama said. Naruto's eyes widened. This wasn't good. Had Kurama noticed Madara's presence? Naruto chuckled as he scratched his head. Oh really? What could have possibly done that? Kurama narrowed his eyes. Don't play dumb with me, Naruto. I know Madara is here. Naruto sighed before he placed his hand on Kurama's paw. Look, Madara hasn't been the nicest guy, I know that. But he's completely harmless now and has only helped me so far. So please Kurama, I'm asking you this as a friend. Can you put up with Madara? Naruto asked pleadingly. Kurama looked away with what looked like a frown on his face. Well, the closest thing a fox could do to frowning. I just want to make this clear. I don't like Madara. I also don't like the fact that you now possess those damn eyes, but I suppose I can live with it, Kurama muttered. Naruto grinned happily as he hugged Kurama's paw. I knew that I could count on you, buddy. Naruto said softly. Kurama seemed to smile. Yes, he had indeed missed the blonde little rascal. Naruto had changed Kurama's way of thinking about humans, after all. Without the boy, it felt like he was missing another part of himself. He would have felt empty if Naruto hadn't been here. I think it's time for you wake up, ladies man. Kurama said with a grin, making Naruto raise an eyebrow in confusion. Your little girlfriend must be so worried. Kurama exclaimed in an overly dramatic tone. What the hell are you even talking about? Naruto asked in confusion. He wasn't surprised that Kurama knew about Rias. The fox had probably seen everything that had happened since Naruto, Madara and Itachi landed in this different dimension. You'll see when you wake up. Kurama said, his grin still on his face. Now off you go. Naruto groaned as the sun shone upon his face. How much he hated that window. He tried to move but was stopped by the familiar feeling of some weight on his body. Naruto cast his eyes downwards to see a naked and extremely satisfied Rias sleeping soundly, her head on his chest and her arms wrapped around him. Ah, so this was what Kurama meant. Naruto smiled slightly at the sight of Rias. He brought his arms up and wrapped one arm around Rias' waist and started stroking her hair slowly with his free hand. He had never felt like this before. Yeah, sure, he had felt something like this when he had met his parents inside the seal, but this was different. Was this how it felt to be loved by another person? Someone who didn't have any other connection with you other than their feelings of love for you? How romantic. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he averted his gaze from Rias' sleeping form and directed it towards Madara, who was looking on with a dry look on his face. Why didn't you tell me about Kurama? Naruto hissed, making sure to keep his voice down so he wouldn't wake up Rias. Were those training sessions nothing more than just a ward to keep Kurama away from me? The thing that hurt Naruto the most was that the training with Madara had actually helped him. He felt like he was getting stronger and was actually getting somewhere with the Uchiha. They would often make small talk after their training was finished. Madara would tell Naruto about the time when Konoha had just been found. Even though it was mostly Madara complaining about old problems and his dislike of the Nidaime and Mito, the former head of the Uzumaki clan, Naruto still enjoyed the stories about his old village very much. He started to see Madara in a new light, not constantly looking at him like he was some manipulative monster that wanted to ensnare the whole world in an illusion. I didn't see any reason to. Madara said with a shrug. Normally Naruto would have made some snide remark by now, but he kept silent. I knew the fox would eventually approach you by itself, and if I had told you about it, then you would probably be nagging me about it constantly. Madara stated in an annoyed tone. Naruto just grunted, not going into further discussion. Arguing with Madara would get him nowhere. They remained silent for a while. Naruto continued to stroke Ria's hair while Madara just watched on, his expression looking like something in between amusement and disgust. The plans have been going quite well, haven't they? Madara said, deciding to break the silence. Naruto just chuckled softly. And here I thought you were someone who liked the silence. But yeah, it's been going good for now. Naruto answered. Madara nodded, his ghostly form floating over towards the window. What are you planning on doing with the devil boy after your business with Kokabiel is finished? Madara asked, the sunrays being stopped by his ghostly aura. Naruto frowned slightly, he understood that Madara was referring to Yuuto. He'll be a spy for now. I can't just walk into the underworld and start chatting with the devils, even though Sirzechs probably wouldn't mind. He'll basically look into business that I can't interfere with regarding the devils. Naruto explained. Madara hummed in approval. And what about the other boy? The one that holds the sacred gear? If Azazel was right about him, we need to keep him on a short leash. Madara said as he waved his hand around, like it would help getting the point across. Naruto's frown deepened. I know. Naruto said with a sigh. I'll focus on him after I'm finished with Kokabiel. Madara narrowed his eyes as he noticed that Naruto had lost some of the eagerness he displayed when they talked about their plans before. There's something wrong with you. Madara stated as he turned away from the window. The sun rays still shone through his body, amplifying his ghostly appearance. It's just that I don't want to ruin things with Ria's peerage now, Maddie-chan. Naruto said with a soft sigh as he looked down onto Ria's face, a small smile playing on her lips. Madara groaned in frustration. This is exactly what I meant. Madara seemed pissed. A few days ago you didn't have a single problem with using that Yuuto boy as a tool to clean out the garbage with. But now that you're suddenly in a relation with this woman, Madara said the word with disgust rolling off his tongue. You can't hurt a fly. It frankly disgusts me that you're acting like some innocent schoolboy in love. You're supposed to be a monster, not a devil-hugging pacifist. I'm not a monster. Naruto hissed. We've been over this before, Madara. We both want to achieve peace in this world, but I won't go around killing everything without a problem. I understand that killing is sometimes necessary, but I won't turn into some homicidal maniac. Madara snorted, not satisfied by Naruto's shallow answer. I'm telling you boy, it's all thanks to getting attached too much to these girls. You didn't have a single problem killing that fallen angel a long time ago because you weren't involved with these devils. You also seem to misunderstand me, Naruto. In worlds like these, where supernatural beings are constantly at war and where people profit from killing, it isn't about who is a monster and who isn't. Madara laughed to himself. He then smiled at Naruto. The smile unnerved Naruto. It wasn't a smile of happiness, that was for certain. It's about who's the biggest monster of all. Madara disappeared, making the sunshine on Naruto's face again. Naruto tightened his grip on Rias. Was it true what Madara had said? Sometimes he killed without trouble, and sometimes he couldn't even think about killing someone. It was like his entire psyche was changing. A small sound gained Naruto's attention. Naruto looked down at his chest to see Rias yawning, her eyes slowly fluttering open. Rias turned her head so she could look Naruto in the eyes and smiled softly at him. "Good morning, Naruto-kun," she said as she ran a hand over Naruto's chest. Naruto gave a small grin in return. "How did you even get in here?" The question wasn't filled with any suspicion, anger or annoyance. It actually didn't feel like a question at all. Naruto probably didn't even care about how Rias got into his room, he just felt the need to ask it. Rias laughed softly. Damn, her laugh was actually really beautiful. Naruto had never even observed these little details about Rias before, but he sure loved every single one of them. "Mere locks are nothing to me, sweetheart. Some simple devil magic and I got in," Rias explained with a playful smirk. Naruto just laughed to himself. He had to get some magic-resistant locks if he wanted to have some sleep. "Naruto-kun, I'm really sorry about Issei's behavior last night." Rias apologized with a small frown on her face. She was about to continue apologizing, but was interrupted by Naruto who had placed his fingers against her forehead, trying to push her eyebrows apart slightly. Rias blushed slightly at the contact. "Don't frown. It doesn't suit you," Naruto said. It came out more like a command. Confusion dawned onto Rias' face. "There's no need to apologize for the actions. He probably feels bad now," Naruto said with a shrug. Rias was still confused however. "So you aren't even bothered by his accusations?" Rias asked, surprised. If someone would have accused her of something like that, she wouldn't be happy. The reply she got from Naruto was a brief and curt nope. "Why should I be bothered by it if I know they're all just false accusations?" Naruto said with a small smile. Such a beautiful liar he was. Rias was honestly surprised. Naruto didn't seem to hold grudges and generally didn't seem to care what others thought about him at all. It made her admire him more, she wanted more of him. "I think it's time for us to get up," Naruto said as he sat up straight, dragging Rias with him. "We wouldn't want Itachi to come and wake us up," Naruto muttered. Rias giggled slightly as she got up from the bed, revealing her body in all its naked glory. She struck a pose and looked at Naruto with a seductive smile. "Like what you see, Naruto-kun." Naruto's face flushed, but he couldn't avert his gaze from Rias' beautiful figure. "See certainly," he replied, his voice shaken. Rias just laughed as the two started getting dressed. Once they were done, the duo walked over towards the kitchen and came to sight with Itachi dressed in his trademark Akatsuki apron, cooking frantically. "Good morning, lovebirds." Itachi greeted them quickly, not averting his gaze from the stove. "Sup Nai-san, good morning Itachi-san." The two replied and sat down at the table. Itachi turned his head slightly so he could look at Rias and Naruto. Apparently, they didn't seem affected by his teasing anymore. Itachi smirked, deciding to take everything up a notch. "Uma should join us at any moment," Itachi remarked offhandedly, his smirk remaining unseen. Naruto paled considerably and Rias sent a questioning gaze towards his direction. "Uma?" "Good morning." A cheery voice rang out. Rias turned around and jumped off her seat when Rainer entered the kitchen. Rias glared at Rainer, who looked shocked at first, but quickly looked confused after a Sharingan-enhanced death stare from Naruto. "You?" Rias shouted. "Me?" Rainer asked as she pointed at herself. "What are you doing here?" Rias was about to continue her assault but was stopped by Naruto grabbing her shoulders. "You should calm down, Rias-chan." Naruto spoke with a reassuring tone. "This is Uma-chan. I found her on the street. She was injured and she lost her memories. I took her in and no, there isn't anything going on between us." Rias frowned. The last time she had seen Rainer was when Madara stole Asia's sacred gear. She didn't look dangerous right now, but Rias still had her suspicions. The woman had been or was still a fallen angel after all. Maybe Madara betrayed her and did this to her, Rias thought to herself. She then sat down again, much to Naruto's relief. Rainer sat down as well, across from Naruto. While Rias didn't seem worried about Uma killing everyone with a light spear anymore, she was worried about something else. The kitchen remained eerily silent, the only sound heard was that of Itachi cooking. Soon Itachi placed a few dishes with scrambled eggs and bacon on the table. Itachi nodded to himself as he sat down next to Rainer, observing the rather tense situation. "Nai-san, can I talk to you after breakfast?" Naruto asked, breaking the silence. Itachi just nodded silently and started eating. No one spoke another word as breakfast passed by without any special events, except Rias and Rainer exchanging the occasional glare. Rias stood up from the table and dragged Naruto up rather ungracefully. She wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck and brought her face extremely close to his. "I'm off to school, Naruto-kun. Now don't you dare skip school, you wouldn't play with my feelings like that, right?" Before Naruto could even say a word, Rias had smashed her lips against his. Naruto didn't have any chance to process anything as Rias continued to kiss him aggressively. Itachi looked rather amused as he saw Rainer fuming at the sight of the couple kissing. Rias then separated from the kiss, smacked Naruto's bottom and promptly walked away. Naruto just stood there, his eyes wide and his brain not properly functioning. "Foolish little brother, it looks like you got whipped by your girlfriend," Itachi remarked. "You wanted to talk about something, right?" Naruto nodded weakly and jerked his head towards the direction of his bedroom, beckoning for Itachi to follow him. The Sharingan brothers entered the bedroom, locking the door behind them. "So what's on your mind?" Itachi asked as he sat down on the bed. This was a decisive moment for Naruto. He was about to tell something extremely important to Itachi, and many things were at stake here. If this went wrong, everything would be lost. If this went right, life would be a lot easier for Naruto. "Promise me you won't kill me?" Naruto asked, his tone slightly pleading. Itachi's face scrunched up in confusion. Kill him? What was this all about? It can't be that bad, right? Looking at Naruto's rather grave expression, Itachi prepared for the worst. Naruto took a deep breath and spoke slowly. "I'm the dude playing Madara. It's not the real one." Itachi just looked at Naruto, not blinking nor breathing. It seemed like time had frozen. He then hummed to himself. "I see. So that's why the chakra signature felt so familiar," Itachi said to himself. Naruto blinked a few times. "You're not mad? You don't have the urge to strangle me?" He had expected more of a reaction. It wasn't an everyday thing to hear that your surrogate little brother was playing the role of one of the most wanted men in the world. Itachi however took it like it was the most normal thing in the world. Itachi shook his head. Naruto just laughed slightly before he threw himself at Itachi, grabbing him tightly by his shoulders. "What's going on in that sick mind of yours?" Naruto yelled in Itachi's face. "I'm here acting like the biggest banana of the shinobi world, stealing sacred gears and chilling with evil fallen angels, and you don't even care, some big brother you are." Itachi just chuckled, much to Naruto's frustration. "Actually, I expected something like this. Your sudden disappearances might not have been seen by you or the devils, but things like that won't escape me." "So you don't have a problem with it?" Naruto asked slowly. Itachi sighed and shook his head. "You really are foolish, aren't you?" Itachi said in amusement before turning serious again. "I don't like the fact that we have to do things like this to achieve peace, but I can see the need for it. I murdered my own family and joined a criminal organization just for the sake of keeping peace in our village. I've grown accustomed to this type of business." "So what are you planning with Kokabiel?" Itachi asked. Naruto grinned slyly. "That'll be a secret for now. I really have to go to school now." Naruto started to activate his Kamui. He was still surprised on how Itachi took all of this so calmly. But Itachi apparently hadn't let him off the hook yet, as he had narrowed his eyes at Naruto. "I hope you two did use protection last night. We can't have any unexpected surprises." Itachi spoke, his voice filled with what could be seen as extreme concern. "You're a banana." Naruto was calmly walking towards the occult research club room, Madara floating beside him. Naruto cast his eyes sideways to look at Madara and felt that familiar tug at his heart again. He realized that he felt bitter. He had never really felt bitter before. He had been depressed, angry, frustrated, but bitter was not on the list. He missed his world. Even though he had people that loved him here, every single time Naruto looked at either Itachi or Madara, he felt pain. A desire to go back to his world and fix everything, but that was impossible now. Things like his parents sacrificing themselves, the Sandame's death, Jiraiya's death, the war, it all had taken much more of a toll on him now. Sure, he had been drowned by negative feelings back then, but he quickly cast them aside because he knew he would be able to fix things. But now everything was gone. His dream to become Hokage would never become a reality. Had all his efforts been for nothing in the end? Naruto sighed deeply, deciding not to linger on these feelings for too long. "Maddie-chan, this morning you mentioned something about keeping Issei on a short leash. Care to elaborate?" Naruto asked with a grin. Madara smirked. "How fortunate that I actually care." Madara spoke in amusement. Naruto tried to snort, but all that came out was a chuckle. "We need to restrict his actions. We certainly can't have him doing idiotic things that would put the sacred gear on the line." Naruto nodded in agreement. Rias would probably be devastated if something would happen to Issei, and that irked Naruto more than it should. Just thinking about Rias and the having some kind of interaction pissed him off. No, he didn't care about Issei. He cared about the sacred gear, and that was all. So how do you plan on restricting him? Naruto asked, slightly interested. By the use of a seal. Madara replied. Naruto's interest was now piqued. His clan was supposedly famed for their use of seals, but he never had the chance to really look into it. Even though Jiraiya had been a master of the art, the subject had never been brought up during the training trip. This would be a great opportunity. I'm talking about the forbidden individual curse tag, to be more specific. This seal is designed to force certain actions on the one it's placed upon, preventing them from making their own choices in critical situations. Madara explained. The seal is directly placed upon the heart. Well, it may look like a difficult procedure, I'm sure you'll manage. Madara waved the matter off with, well, a wave of his hand. That sounds like one bad seal. Naruto said with a small grin on his face. So can it be removed or stopped by anything? The only way to remove the seal is to strike directly at the heart, which also risks one's life. Technically, the only way to effectively removing the seal is by killing the one it's placed upon. Madara explained once again. Naruto nodded to himself, a small smirk on his face. With this he would have his wrapped around his fingers. Naruto entered the club building, this time he decided to calmly walk inside instead of entering like a badass. He walked over towards the main room and opened the door. Once again, everyone was present except Yuuto. Rias was sitting behind her desk, Akeno standing next to her. Rias smiled at Naruto. Good. I'm happy that you actually decided to come. Rias said, her smile still on her face. Naruto just grinned at her. Well, I'm a man of my word, even though I didn't really get the chance to say anything, Naruto replied, blushing slightly as he remembered the events of this morning. He then turned towards Kaneko, who was sitting on one of the couches. Boy, Kaneko-chan. I brought you some sweets. Naruto said as he walked over to Kaneko and handed her a small bag. Kaneko quickly thanked Naruto and started to devour the contents of the bag. Naruto laughed and sat down next to Kaneko, patting her head. The combination of delicious sweets and amazing head pats were too much for Kaneko as she started purring loudly and entered a state of absolute bliss. While Naruto and Kaneko seemed to enjoy themselves, two other people in the room didn't like the situation at all. Issei and Rias were both glaring daggers at the two. Issei was incredibly jealous about the fact that Naruto seemed to have such an easy time getting around with the girls. First Rias, then Akeno and now Kaneko. Rias was jealous as well, but for a completely other reason. Naruto's love was only reserved for her, and maybe Itachi could have some occasionally, but she wasn't intent on sharing him with anybody. The two were broken out of their stupor by a giggling Akeno. Is there something you find funny, Akeno? Rias asked with narrowed eyes. Akeno just waved her off, still giggling. It's nothing, but you. It's just that I noticed that the air reeks of jealousy. Rias blushed slightly and averted her gaze from Akeno. She sent one last glance towards Kaneko and Naruto before coughing in her hand, gaining everyone's attention. It's time to get to business. She said as she crossed her arms under her bust. Kaneko, Akeno and I just sent our familiars out to look for Yuuto, Zenovia and Arena. Naruto-kun, there's a high chance that we will encounter Madara again. Is there anything we should know? Rias asked Naruto. Naruto crossed his arms and stared up to the ceiling, thinking. Make it sound more dangerous. The real Madara's voice rang out from behind Naruto. If they'll avoid directly engaging you in battle, we can go along with our business easier. Madara explained. Naruto nodded slightly, still looking up to the ceiling. Well, prepare to die if you fight him up close. The man is like a tank, he's extremely durable. I'd suggest staying away from him and attack him from long range. Naruto said. It would have been way too suspicious if he had told them to not fight Madara at all, but Naruto would be able to deal with some long-range attacks. Itachi-sen was perfectly fine when he fought Madara up close. Issei argued. Naruto just snorted in response, making Issei frown slightly. That's because Madara was holding back. If he was going full out, we would be attending Itachi's funeral right now. He likes to show that he is superior to his enemies. He gives them hope and then takes it away by completely obliterating everyone. Naruto explained. The real Madara had also used this tactic and Naruto knew the consequences all too well. Test. Oi Naruto, can you hear me? Kurama. Naruto thought. Good, so you can hear me. It took a while to establish this whole link again. Kurama said in an annoyed tone. You remember how this works, right? Just think about talking to me in your head. Yeah, I know. So what's up? I don't think you wanted to talk to me just for shits and giggles. I sensed a powerful presence arriving in the area just now. I'm actually surprised the devils haven't noticed yet. You should be careful. Kurama said with concern before cutting the mental link. The powerful presence that had suddenly arrived in Kuo, what could it possibly be? I'm sorry everyone, I just remembered that I have to do something really important with Itachi. Naruto said quickly as he stood up from the couch. Naruto looked back to see Kaneko tugging at his sleeve. I want more head pats later. Naruto grinned and gave her a thumbs up. Rias narrowed her eyes slightly and decided to quickly avert Naruto's attention from Kaneko. Now, Naruto-kun. Make sure you respond to my calls. There's a high chance we may need you and Itachi if something happens. Rias said with a smile, but that smile soon disappeared when she realized something. Naruto had already left. Irina-chan. Issei quickly ran over towards Irina, who was lying on the ground, her clothes torn and her body winded. He kneeled down next to her. Rias' familiar managed to track down Irina and immediately reported to Rias. Unfortunately, there was still no sign of Yuuto or Zenovia. Because the whole fallen angel problem was quite the issue, Sona and a few members of her peerage had tagged along with Rias and her own peerage. Who did this to you? Issei asked softly. Irina coughed slightly as she looked at Issei, barely able to keep her eyes open. He was too strong. Zenovia and Kiba got away. Irina managed to stutter out. Issei sent a pleading look towards the others. Asia. Rias commanded. Asia nodded and made her way over towards Irina and Issei and kneeled down as well, activating her twilight healing. As Asia began to start healing Irina's wounds, she suddenly started to look a bit worried. It isn't working. She exclaimed desperately. Her holy energy got stolen, I can't heal that. Do not fret. Sona said as she pushed her glasses up. Tsubaki. Take Irina back to heal her. We'll be able to replenish her energy. Sona ordered her queen. Tsubaki nodded and teleported herself and Irina away through a magic circle. Oh, all the filthy devils decided to gather around, eh? This will be fun. The devils in question turned their head to see an all too familiar rogue exorcist step out of the shadows. Freed. That's right. Freed exclaimed, his maniacal grin already on his face. He then lifted his head as he too recognized a familiar figure. Oh, if it isn't the witch. How does it feel to be filth, Asia? Don't you want to kill yourself now that you've become the things God hates the most? Freed asked, his tone filled with venom as he glared at Asia. Asia cowered and hid behind Issei, who was glaring at Freed. Don't think I will let you talk to my servants like that. Rias shouted as she stood protectively in front of Issei and Asia. Freed just laughed in response, making Rias narrow her eyes at the exorcist. Calm down, princess. I didn't come here to bathe in your blood. Well, at least not now. There's someone who would like to talk you. Freed said as he pointed up towards the sky. The sky itself suddenly darkened, assuming a purple color. A figure descended from the sky. With his pale skin, pointed ears, long black hair and red eyes, he was quite the intimidating one. With the 10 black wings that came from his back, there was no mistake that this was a fallen angel. So this must be Kokabiel, Rias muttered. I see there is no need for further introductions, sister of Sirzechs and sister of Serafall. Kokabiel spoke with a grin, showing off his sharp teeth. Rias narrowed her eyes at the fallen angel. What do you want, Kokabiel? Rias demanded to know. Kokabiel laughed boisterously. Oh, what a fiery one you are. Guess your incompetency runs in the family, that brat Sirzechs is also like that, Kokabiel muttered to himself. Rias didn't seem amused. Don't you dare to talk about my brother like that. Now answer my question. Rias demanded. What I want? I want chaos, a fight, I want war. Kokabiel exclaimed, making the devils gasp in horror. If I'll kill you too, I'm sure Serafall and Sirzechs will make a grand entrance. And with the holy sword wielder down as well, I'm sure Michael will have to drag himself down from the clouds as well. Kokabiel continued to explain his grand plan. That will surely spark the fires of conflict between the 3 factions again, and I will show that the fallen angels are the true supreme beings. This time, I shall be the victor in this new great war. Kokabiel shouted as he spread his arms wide. You're insane. Issei shouted. He quickly activated his boosted gear, making Kokabiel chuckle in amusement. So this is your sacred gear. Let me remind you, I'm not like Azazel. Longinus or not, your gauntlet does not interest me, nor does it pose a threat to me. Kokabiel said dismissingly. Azazel? The leader of the Grigori? Is he involved in this too? Sona asked, pushing her glasses up as she glared at Kokabiel. Kokabiel scoffed as a disgusted look made its way to his face. That lazy bastard wouldn't even dream about something like this. I've grown sick and tired of him just sitting there and hoping for his so-called peace. He only talks about sacred gears and even lets humans that possess the weakest of them join us. If they were strong it would be another story, but they're all trash. Since Azazel will never do anything, I thought it was time to take action myself. Kokabiel told the devils with a malicious smile. I can't wait to test out all these new toys. Freed shouted in absolute glee as he opened his coat, revealing the other Excaliburs. Issei's eyes widened as he recognized Irina's sword. You bastard. You're the one that hurt Irina-chan. Issei shouted in rage, preparing to charge at Freed. Fried just cackled madly as his tongue hung out of his mouth slightly. "What you gonna do, you piece of shit?" Fried taunted. "Enough of these games." Kokabiel silenced Fried with a raised hand. He then smiled maliciously once again and spread his wings. "It's time for us to depart to the battlefield." Kokabiel flew back up into the sky. Ria's eyes widened as she realized that Kokabiel was flying towards Kuo Academy. Rias was snapped out of her stupor by Sona. "Rias, we have no time to waste. We must protect Kuo Academy at all costs. My peerage will set up a barrier so we can fight Kokabiel without problems. But what about Fried?" Rias asked. "He already got away." Issei answered through gritted teeth. This was it. The decisive battle was about to begin. "Boy, ye old bastard. How long is this stupid magic thing gonna take? I want to cut down some of those devil bitches." Valper and Fried were currently standing around what looked like a magic circle. Valper was in the midst of combining the 4 pieces of Excalibur into one holy sword. "Patience, Fried. While fusing the blades is one thing, I also have to make sure that the destruction spell is set up properly," Valper said with a sigh. Fried's psychotic tendencies could be such an annoyance sometimes. "So Kokabiel is now planning to destroy the city as well, huh? Boss." Fried exclaimed happily. Valper quickly turned around, sweat dripping down his forehead and a rather terrified look on his face. Madara-sama," he stuttered out. Madara chuckled as he approached the circle. "Hello Fried, Valper. Glorious day, isn't it?" Madara asked casually. "Yes indeed." Fried exclaimed as he pumped a fist in the air. "After this old fuck is finished with his magic, I'm gonna get the chance to finally kill some devils." "How marvelous." "Valper, I have a question for you. I recently discovered that your Holy Sword project was actually a success. Care to explain what you got out of it?" Madara asked. "Of course, Madara-sama." Valper agreed quickly as he started to rummage through his robe. He smiled wickedly as he pulled out a small blue crystal and showed it to Madara. "This is the final result of my project. As you may know, the requirement to wield a holy sword is that the wielder must have a high amount of light attribute inside their body. I removed the light attribute from test subjects and crystallized it so that anyone could gain the ability to wield Excalibur." Valper explained, that wicked smile still on his face. Naruto narrowed his eyes under his mask. God, this man reminded him of Orochimaru. And he didn't like Orochimaru at all. But all of this would be finished soon, so there were no worries. Madara snatched the crystal out of Valper's hands. Valper was about to protest, but shock quickly stopped his need to protest as he saw what Madara did. He crushed the crystal and was absorbing the light attribute into his body. Madara laughed as he felt the golden energy surge through his body. Fried looked rather happy, while Valper looked absolutely terrified. "This feels refreshing," Madara said with a sigh of satisfaction. At the same moment, a beam of light shot up towards the sky from the magic circle. Madara walked over towards the now fused Excalibur that was floating in the middle of the magic circle. He grabbed it and gave it a few experimental swings. The funny thing was that Naruto had never actually really used a sword in his life. But it felt so natural, like he had been holding a sword from the moment he had been born. "I appreciate the effort you put into all of this, Valper." Madara thanked Valper. "I hope hell has mercy on you." Before Valper could even say anything, Madara had cut his head off with the fused Excalibur. Fried laughed maniacally as he kicked Valper's head and used it as a ball. After Fried had his fun, Madara used Kamui to suck Valper's head and corpse into his dimension. He then turned towards Fried again, lazily swinging the fused Excalibur around. "So what do you say, Fried? Want to give this blade a go?" Issei grunted as he dodged a fireball sent by the Cerberus that Kokabiel had summoned. Apparently Kokabiel didn't want to fight them yet, so he had brought his throne and was now watching the devils fight the 3-headed beasts. There was still a good side to all of this though. Yuuto and Zenovia had joined the fight. Just as the Cerberus was about to fire another fireball at Issei, Kaneko appeared and punched the middle head of the beast extremely hard, instantly defeating it. Issei quickly thanked Kaneko, who seemed to ignore him. There was still a second Cerberus walking around here somewhere. "Itachi, look out," Issei shouted. Rias turned around to see the Cerberus standing behind her, its mouth wide and ready to devour her. Ria's eyes widened, she wouldn't have enough time to activate her power of destruction. Fortunately for her, her savior was right around the corner. Dynamic entry. In a flash, someone kicked the Cerberus, knocking it away. The figure gracefully somersaulted mid-air, landing on the ground. The figure turned around and grinned at Rias. "I've come to save my damsel in distress." Rias shook her head at Naruto's words, a small smile playing on her lips. "I'm happy you're here, Naruto-kun. Now we should deal with this fallen angel," Rias said in a serious tone, looking at Kokabiel who was still sitting on his throne. "Oh, another player joins the game?" Kokabiel asked, his face resting on his hand. "And from what I see you're just a human. I'll finish you quickly." Kokabiel formed an incredibly large light spear and threw it at Naruto and Rias. Naruto grabbed Rias by her waist, pulling her close to him. He activated his Sharingan and formed the protective ribcage of his Susanoo. The light spear crashed into the Susanoo, resulting into a small explosion. After the explosion cleared down, Naruto and Rias were still standing on the same spot completely unharmed. "How? Do you have those eyes?" Kokabiel shouted in a mixture of fear and rage. Naruto smirked as he channeled chakra into his legs and jumped up, heading straight towards Kokabiel's throne. Naruto formed a Rasengan in his hand and smashed into Kokabiel's chest, the sheer force destroying the throne and knocking Kokabiel towards the ground. Kokabiel quickly spread his wings out and stopped his fall just as he was about to hit the ground. Freed should appear any time now, Naruto thought to himself. "What's up, shitty devils?" "Right on time," Naruto muttered to himself. Yuuto and Zenovia both widened their eyes as they observed Freed's newly attended fused Excalibur. Freed grinned as he swung around his sword, golden energy surrounding it. "Your pathetic little sticks won't stop this beauty," Freed said as he licked the tip of the sword. Freed then suddenly disappeared out of sight, making Zenovia narrow her eyes. "Be careful, devil," Zenovia warned Yuuto. "He holds the powers of those 4 pieces of Excalibur in one blade now, tread with caution." Yuuto nodded. Suddenly Freed appeared behind Yuuto, his sword raised in the air. Both Yuuto and Zenovia jumped away from Freed. As soon as the fused Excalibur hit the ground, it created a massive crater due to the powers of Excalibur destruction. Naruto was currently dodging the swings of Kokabiel's large light blade, occasionally attacking back with a few chakra-enforced punches and kicks. As much as he wanted to deal with Kokabiel now, he had to wait until that banana and his own shadow clone would arrive. Naruto lifted his head to the side so he wouldn't get hit by Kokabiel's light spear. After that he immediately started to go through some hand seals. High release. Great fireball technique. A massive fireball made its way towards Kokabiel. In response, Kokabiel used his wings to fly over the fireball. While he was still in the air, Kokabiel threw 10 light spears at Naruto, who created 10 clones. The clones carefully dodged the spears as they charged at Kokabiel. Once they were close enough, all the clones formed a Rasengan. Kokabiel used his light sword to block the attacks coming from the front, but wasn't able to defend himself against the attacks coming from his sides and from behind. A small explosion was the result. "Am I the only one who thinks that Naruto-kun looks extremely beautiful right now?" Akeno asked, her face flushed and her body shaking slightly. "I want him to ravage me too." Rias glared at Akeno. Like she would have a chance. The only body that Naruto would ravage would be hers. "Are you sure you can still handle me?" Naruto asked Kokabiel in a teasing tone. "Maybe we should step down to kindergartner level, so poor little Kokabiel won't get scratched." The smoke that was caused by the explosion cleared down, revealing a rather pissed Kokabiel glaring at Naruto. Without saying another word, Kokabiel creating a light spear and smashed it into the ground. Light energy started to move across the ground, heading towards Naruto. Naruto jumped into the air and used his Kamui to eject a few shuriken out of his eyes. Kokabiel used his light sword to casually deflect the shuriken. In the midst of this heated battle, Kokabiel suddenly flew back, making some distance between Naruto and himself. Kokabiel then turned towards Issei, a grin on his face. "Since there's no chance for you to win anyways, and I want to make this a little more entertaining," Kokabiel said, his grin still present. "I assume that you didn't know you can transfer the energy from the boosted gear towards others." Issei's eyes widened in response to this revelation. A smirk then appeared on his face as he started to boost rapidly. "You're really stupid, you know that," Issei taunted. "We'll beat you now." Issei then transferred his energy to Rias, who was smirking as well. "Why thank you, Issei," Rias said as she activated her power of destruction. She then hurled a massive sphere of compressed destructive energy towards Kokabiel. Only for Kokabiel to catch it with one hand. Kokabiel laughed as he hurled the sphere away, destroying one of the school's buildings. He kept on laughing as he saw the desperate looks on the devils' faces. He then resumed his battle against Naruto, chakra versus light. Compared to these devils, you are actually incredibly powerful," Kokabiel remarked. "And you have those eyes as well, perhaps you would like to join me, child," Kokabiel offered. Naruto just laughed, much to Kokabiel's confusion. "I'm sorry, but I'm more than happy working with these devils," Naruto replied. Kokabiel narrowed his eyes but grinned nonetheless. "I see. But because our battle has been entertaining so far, I shall grant you the most merciful death." Kokabiel then started to swing his light sword around wildly and threw the occasional light spear in between his swings. Naruto dodged the swings of the sword and used the skeletal arm of his Susanoo to deflect the light spears. Naruto's attention wasn't on Kokabiel though. Apparently, Freed wasn't faring too well against Yuuto and Zenovia. Fried had decided to taunt Yuuto to the extreme by telling him that the souls of his friends had been consumed, which Naruto didn't know when he absorbed the light attribute crystal, and told him that Yuuto's revenge would never be realized. This only strengthened Yuuto's resolve however, and caused him to activate something called a balance breaker, the ultimate state of activation of a sacred gear. Yuuto's balance breaker allowed him to create a holy demonic sword. This sword combined with Zenovia's Durandal outclassed Fried. Naruto's side. Apparently he had to interfere already. Suddenly, a flock of crows surrounded Fried. More and more crows started to fly around him, picking at him. In mere seconds, Fried and Excalibur had both disappeared and all what was left was a small pool of blood. Is he dead? Yuuto asked in shock. This had all happened so suddenly. Where did those crows even come from? They felt familiar. Excalibur is gone as well, Zenovia added quietly. Had those birds destroyed the holy sword too? What kind of sorcery was that? Zenovia and Yuuto quickly snapped out of it and joined the others against Kokabiel. Naruto had retreated, claiming he was a bit tired. Fortunately for him, no one knew about his extreme stamina and large chakra reserves yet, so he was able to get away with it. He had kept Kokabiel busy for most of the time after all. Naruto turned his head slightly, his gaze lingering on the roof of the main building of Kuo Academy. Naruto grinned at Itachi, who was standing on the rooftop. Itachi smirked and quickly disappeared as well. Naruto and Itachi had come up with quite the clever plan. Since Excalibur could be useful in the future, Itachi decided to stay in the shadows and cast a Genjutsu, making it look like Fried and Excalibur were destroyed by these mysterious crows. The Genjutsu itself was actually just a cover-up. While the Genjutsu was active, Itachi had made his way over to Fried and used a Shunshin to quickly transport the Exorcist and Excalibur to a safe location. Tell me, girl. Kokabiel addressed Zenovia. Why do you fight for a dead lord? He asked, earning a confused look from the girl. What are you talking about, fallen angel? Zenovia asked suspiciously. Kokabiel just laughed and brought a hand up to his mouth. Perhaps I shouldn't have said that. Kokabiel said to himself in amusement. But I'll tell you what I'm talking about. During the Great War, the original 4 great Satans weren't the only persons of significance that died. A crazy grin appeared on Kokabiel's face as he spread his arms wide. God died as well. Everyone was shocked to their core. Well, everyone except Naruto, he didn't really care. But God was dead. How was that even possible? Stop spewing lies, you filth. Zenovia shouted, her body shaking slightly. I can still feel his presence this very moment. Zenovia's declaration made Kokabiel laugh only more. After the Great War, the leaders of the faction decided to keep God's death a secret so there wouldn't be a ruckus. That presence you feel is that bastard Michael acting like he's God. Without God, no one will be able to stop me. Kokabiel explained, taking pleasure as he saw Zenovia's world slowly crumble. You honestly think that my brother and the other Satans won't take any action against you? Rias asked with narrowed eyes. Ha! Sirzechs and his little friends are nothing compared to the original Satans. Sirzechs is weak, afraid of taking any action just like Azazel. Lucifer was a monster, a tyrant that ruled the underworld with an iron fist. Sirzechs will never be on his level. Kokabiel spat, making Rias glare at him with all her hate. No one insulted her brother like that and got away with it. Kokabiel then started to form the largest light spear everyone had ever seen. He really was intent on destroying the whole city. But Kokabiel never got to even throwing the light spear as he was hit by something in the back. Kokabiel screamed in pain as he felt his wings being ripped off his back. Kokabiel fell to his knees, revealing the figure that was standing behind him. It was none other than Madara himself. Greetings, devils, Naruto-kun. Madara said with nod. The devils glared at Masked Man while Naruto just chuckled, much to the devil's surprise, and slowly walked forward. Rias was about to yell for him to stop, thinking that he would do something dangerous, but Naruto silenced her with a raised hand. I can't say it's a pleasure to see you again. Naruto said with a small glare. Madara just laughed in response. Don't be like that, Naruto-kun. I didn't come to fight this time however, I've come to deal with this man over here. Madara said as he put a foot on the unconscious body of Kokabiel. Before Naruto or any of the devils could say another word to Madara, another person had appeared. It was a young man with dark silver hair, wearing a leather jacket with a green V-neck shirt under it and jeans that had some leather pads attached to them. Madara sighed in annoyance as he crossed his arms. You're late, Vali. Madara stated in an annoyed tone. Vali just chuckled as he approached Madara. The two shook hands with each other. The devils just looked on confused, while Naruto's expression briefly changed to a satisfied smirk. How much you love those shadow clones. I'm sorry, Madara-san. It looks like I missed out on all the fun and I had wanted to fight him so much. Guess he wouldn't be that much of a challenge after all, Vali muttered rather disappointedly. Vali picked up Kokabiel and turned his head towards the devils. We are not your enemies. I'm just here following orders. Vali explained. Issei looked on rather suspiciously. His sacred gear was reacting rather strangely to this man. Issei and Vali. So this is the one I'm destined to fight, the Red Dragon Emperor, Vali thought to himself. He then turned towards Madara with a smirk. Say, Madara-san. When will we have our rematch? Vali asked with a smirk on his face. I'm sure I'll be able to defeat you this time. The devils widened their eyes. This man actually fought Madara. This meant that he had to be strong, to be able to face a strong adversary like Madara was quite the feat. Madara snorted. The day you'll win from me is the day hell freezes over. Vali narrowed his eyes at Madara. Yes, he respected him because he was so strong. But he was set on proving that he was even stronger. Vali and Madara then disappeared. Everybody was just silent for a while. Zenovia was still on her knees, still shocked by the discovery of God's death. The silence was broken by Naruto's cheery voice. This calls for a celebration. Naruto sighed softly as he felt the refreshing breeze blow through his hair. Everyone was currently in his apartment throwing a small celebration party. Sona's peerage decided to not attend the party as they were busy rebuilding the academy. Kokabiel's assault had caused more damage than he thought. Zenovia had also formally apologized for her past behavior and was planning to join Rias' peerage as a rook, much to Naruto's surprise. The girl would probably not be able to return to the church and Rias was so kind to offer her a place among the devils. Naruto still had Arena to fall back to if he was about to interact with the angels, since she wasn't informed about God's death. Yuuto had also returned to the peerage, much to Ria's relief and happiness. That reminded him he had to give Valper's head to Yuuto later. Naruto laughed a bit to himself. Everything was going great so far. Now that Itachi was also directly involved with his plans, things were a lot easier. The only thing that caused him trouble was Rainer, but Rias was the only one who knew about her and she had believed Naruto's lie as well. Itachi had told her to stay in her room during the party since everyone else, especially Issei, would freak out if they would see her. Long story short, there was nothing to worry about. Or so Naruto thought. I have finally found you. Naruto turned around to see a small girl standing behind him. The girl had long black hair that reached down to her hips and was dressed in some kind of black gothic Lolita outfit. Naruto rose an eyebrow at the rather curious girl. Hey there. Are you lost? Naruto asked with a smile. The girl shook her head. No. I have come for you. Uchiha Madara. Or Uzumaki Naruto. Or whatever you want to be called. The girl answered stoically. This caused alarms to go off in Naruto's head. And everything was just so perfect a few seconds ago. How do you know all of that? Who the hell are you? Naruto asked with narrowed eyes. I am Ophis. Ouroboros dragon. The infinite dragon god. Ophis introduced herself. Naruto didn't look convinced however. Ha! How dense do you think I am? There's no way such a cute little girl like you could be a dragon god. Naruto exclaimed, laughing at how stupid it sounded. His laughter stopped as he saw that Ophis looked completely serious. Wait, you're actually a dragon? Ophis nodded. Yes. I want you to help me. Naruto frowned. So this must be the powerful presence Kurama talked about earlier. As he looked at the girl, he remembered some wise words Itachi had told him once when they were just chilling back at the apartment. It is not wise to judge others based on your own preconceptions and their appearances. Naruto understood completely that this could very well be some kind of majestic dragon god. He already had enough problems with the supernatural world and he didn't want to add more problems to the list. Alright, Ophis. Why do you need my help? Naruto asked. I want to regain my silence. Ophis answered Naruto's question. Naruto lifted his head in confusion. Regain your silence? Naruto repeated. What do you mean by that? The red one stole my silence. I want it back. Ophis explained, although it was still not clear for Naruto. The red one? Who's that supposed to be? So you want to take your silence back from this red one? Naruto concluded, making Ophis nod in affirmation. Naruto just shrugged. Sure. I guess I can help with that. Naruto said casually. It wouldn't be wise to try and go against this girl if she really was this infinite dragon god. If only Naruto knew what he had gotten himself into. So was that all you wanted to say, Ophis? I kinda have to go back home now, Naruto said, hoping that he would not have to suffer Ria's wrath. His waifu would probably destroy his own waifu. You interest me. Ophis stated, her impassive look not showing a tiny bit of emotion. Naruto laughed, making Ophis her head slightly. Curiosity is what killed the cat, Ophis. Naruto said, a small smile on his face. Ophis didn't really seem pleased by the answer. How can curiosity kill a cat? She asked. Naruto facepalmed at the stupidity of the question. It's an expression, don't take it too seriously. But I really have to go now, see you later, Ophis. Naruto said with a grin as he gave Ophis a two-fingered salute and ran off. Ophis just watched Naruto's form until he disappeared out of her sight. I shall continue to observe you, Naruto. Naruto sighed in satisfaction as he entered the apartment. He really needed some sleep now, as today had been incredibly tired. Now that his plans with Kokabiel were done, he'd have to focus on Vali and Issei now. That would certainly be a troublesome job. Ladies, I'm afraid you'll have to leave the house now. Naruto heard Itachi's voice from the living room. Excuse me, Itachi-san. As Naruto's girlfriend I have every right to be here. Rias argued. Ara. Abusing your rights as a girlfriend already? Akeno's voice rang out. As soon Naruto entered the living room, he was trapped into a hug by Rias. His head was shoved into her bosom. Though the position was quite comfortable, Naruto had trouble to breathe. He tried to wiggle himself out of Rias' grip, but it was to no avail. You see, Akeno? Rias asked with a triumphant smirk on her face. Naruto is mine. I've told you before, I won't share him. He's mine and mine alone. Itachi buried his face in his hands while Akeno just smiled sweetly. Naruto finally pried himself out of the hug, his face slightly red. Damn it, Rias. You don't have to rub it in, and I'm not only talking about what you just did with your balls. Naruto shouted. Naruto-kun, this time I wanted to talk to you. Itachi said in a rather serious tone. Naruto followed Itachi towards the bedroom, leaving the two girls alone in the living room. As soon as they entered Naruto's bedroom, Itachi pulled out a rather large box from under the bed. I've never seen that before. Naruto said with a frown. Itachi chuckled slightly. That's because it's never been there before. I managed to recreate something quite useful, Itachi said as he opened the box. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw what was inside the box. How did you manage to make that? Inside the box was a beautiful gunbai, a war fan that was used by the Uchihas in the past. Naruto had seen Madara fight with that thing, and it was an absolute little beast. We're going to train with it from now on. Itachi explained. You actually know how to use this thing? Naruto asked, not taking his eyes off the gunbai. Itachi nodded in response. Yes, I used it when I was younger. Back when the whole preserving the history of the clan thing was really important to my father. Itachi then closed the box and shoved it back under the bed. He then stood up and gave Naruto a small smile. Our first training session will be tomorrow. I suggest that you go to sleep now, so you'll be well rested next morning. Good night, little brother. Itachi said as he left the room. Naruto decided to follow Itachi's advice and immediately changed into his sleepwear, hopped into his bed and turned off the lights. Not a minute passed, and Naruto heard the door open and close again. He laughed slightly as he felt Ria's naked body cuddle up to him. Can you sleep alone for once? Naruto asked jokingly. There's conditions that need to be met in order for me to sleep properly. Rias explained. The first one is that I need to be completely naked. And the second one? Naruto asked. I need to be with you. Rias whispered. Naruto wrapped an arm around Rias and pulled her in closer. I'll promise you this, Rias. I'll never leave you alone. And I never go back on my word. Naruto stated softly, yet his voice was filled with conviction. Rias smiled softly and kissed him on the cheek. I'll keep you to that. The two made some casual talk, since they both realized they wouldn't fall asleep anytime soon. During their conversation, a rather interesting topic came up. Class observation day will be here soon, Rias said rather offhandedly. Naruto hummed. Are your parents coming? He asked. To be honest, Naruto had been interested in Ria's parents. They probably held some significant status in the underworld, so it would be best for Naruto if he would be able to befriend Ria's parents. Yeah, they are. Brother will probably tag along too. What about your parents, Naruto-kun? Are they coming? Rias was interested in Naruto's parents as well. Her boyfriend actually never spoke about his family except Itachi. It's kinda hard for dead people to come. Naruto replied with a frown. Rias gasped in shock. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. I didn't know. If you want to talk about. Don't worry about it. Naruto cut her off. They've been gone for a long time now. I don't need to talk about it. We should go to sleep now. Naruto said as he kissed Ria's forehead and closed his eyes. Rias laid her head on Naruto's chest, a small frown on her face. She actually felt bad. She was in love with this man and yet she knew almost nothing about him. She'd dig deeper into his past, she would be the best girlfriend he would ever have. The two fell asleep quickly in each other's arms, unaware of the ruckus going on in Naruto's mind. Kurama and Madara glared at each other from the corners of their eyes as they observed the events that happened today. Madara discovered that they could actually both be in Naruto's mindscape at the same time, much to Kurama's dismay. They're so cute together. Kurama mentioned. They're really a perfect couple. Madara snorted and crossed his arms. Please, lying to yourself is bad, Fox. I would prefer for Naruto to have no woman at all. It was amusing at first, but I never thought the boy would get serious. But if I have to choose, I'd rather have him sleeping with that Akeno girl. Kurama looked at Madara like he was crazy. Akeno? Seriously? You go for the sadist? I knew you were insane, but this takes the cake. Madara narrowed his eyes at Kurama. Would you rather have him with this spoiled red-haired princess? Do you have anything against reunites? I happened to be sealed inside two of them, and they both were extremely nice, even though I held imminent hatred for humanity at that point in time, but that doesn't matter. Kurama shouted. Foolish fox. The ones with raven hair are always superior. You should get that through your thick skull. The two glared at each other, Rinnegan meeting slitted pupils. And so the shipping wars began. Naruto grinned happily as the sun shone upon his face and the gentle breeze blew through his hair. He looked to his side to see a very happy Rias holding his hand. The two were skidding through a beautiful landscape. The two made their way through the lush grass, dancing and jumping. Suddenly Rias stopped, embracing Naruto. Naruto-kun, please make love to me, she breathed out. Naruto grinned as he wiggled his eyebrows. With pleasure. Suddenly, the sky darkened. Pitch black storm clouds appeared and the gentle breeze was replaced by a stormy wind. Lightning stuck in the middle of the couple, separating the two from each other. Naruto, a deep voice came from the clouds. Naruto tried to get to Rias, but every time he tried to move, lightning struck nearby. Naruto. Naruto's eyes shot open as he almost jumped out of his bed. His eyes met the form of Itachi, who was standing in front of the bed, the gunbai lazily slung over his shoulder. Naruto sighed, this certainly wasn't the wake-up call he had hoped for. Damn it, Itachi, I was having such a nice dream. And it's like what, 6 in the morning, Naruto hissed. Itachi just shrugged, not seeming to be bothered by the fact that he had woken up his little brother up so early. I informed you yesterday that we would be training. You can keep your wet dreams for tonight. Itachi replied nonchalantly. Naruto just grumbled something as he tried to get out of bed. Unfortunately for him, the sleeping form of Rias was still holding on to his body for her dear life. After some prying, Naruto managed to escape from Rias' grip. Naruto got dressed, and the Sharingan brothers soon left the bedroom, only to come in contact with another problem. Naruto was suddenly tackled to the floor. Naruto groaned as he looked up to the person who had tackled him. It was none other than Rainer. Rainer-chan, what the hell are you doing? Naruto shouted. Madara-sama, I've seen how you acted with that devil yesterday, and I can't stand it. Rainer exclaimed as she rubbed her body against Naruto's. This made Naruto feel extremely uncomfortable, probably because Rainer was dressed in nothing except her underwear. Now, I'm sure we can talk about this, Naruto tried to reason. This only made Rainer rub herself against him harder. No, I can't wait. If she can have your lips, I will have the rest of your body. Rainer shouted, her voice filled with lust. Naruto realized his chances of escaping from the fallen angel and did what every other man would do in his situation. Itachi. Help me. It's repellent. Itachi's voice rang out. Itachi used a spray bottle to spray some water onto Rainer's face. Rainer hissed lowly, like she was a vampire that came into contact with sunlight. She quickly retreated back into her room, much to Naruto's relief. I can't believe it, that thing actually worked, Naruto said quietly. Itachi pulled Naruto up from the floor and patted his shoulder encouragingly. You'll have time to think about your harem later, foolish little brother. Now it is time for our training. Itachi said. Naruto just grunted, put his hands in his pockets and followed Itachi out of the apartment. The two slowly made their way towards the area where Naruto had fought Azazel before. Since it was still early in the morning, there weren't many people outside, so the duo wouldn't have to worry about someone being suspicious about the fact that they were carrying a huge war fan around. The two soon arrived at the lake. Itachi nodded to himself as he turned towards Naruto, the gunbai being held in his hands. Alright, first things first. From what you've told me, your main affinity is the wind nature, correct? Itachi asked, to which Naruto nodded in affirmative. Then this will be easier for you to do. The gunbai relies on wind chakra to function properly. Itachi explained. Let me show you. Itachi turned towards the lake. He gave one swing with his gunbai, creating a powerful gust of wind. The force of the attack managed to create waves on the water. Even Naruto, who was not even standing in the direction of the attack, felt its sheer power. Why don't you give it a try? Itachi threw the gunbai towards Naruto. Naruto quickly caught it, twirling and twisting it around in his hand. Once he had found a nice grip, he turned towards the lake and swung the gunbai. Naruto's attack was strong, but was going in a straight line instead of a widespread attack like Itachi's. Itachi crossed his arms and hummed in approval. That was good, certainly for a beginner. But I'm afraid those chakra control lessons you've taken before also had some negatives to them, Itachi said, making Naruto his head in confusion. Itachi sighed. Let me explain. When you're channeling wind chakra into the gunbai, forget about all the control. This wind is supposed to blow away and destroy, not cut. You don't have to be precise. Naruto nodded and prepared to try again. He gave another swing, this time not controlling his chakra and even pouring even more chakra into the gunbai. The result of this was an extremely powerful wind, almost comparable to the power of a storm. Naruto placed the gunbai down and looked at Itachi with a grin. Itachi gave a smirk of approval in return. Fantastic. With your large chakra reserves and control over your wind affinity, you'll have most of the gunbai techniques down in no time. Now there's one more technique I would like to show you. Itachi walked over towards Naruto and picked up the gunbai. Itachi then made some distance between himself and Naruto. Now come at me with an underpowered Rasengan. Itachi ordered. Naruto complied and charged at Itachi. As soon as the Rasengan was about to hit, Itachi blocked using the gunbai. Uchiha turn. The gunbai started to glow, making Naruto widen his eyes. Madara had used this move before during the war. Naruto was sent flying back by the force the gunbai expelled. Naruto gracefully somersaulted in midair, landing on his feet. Holy shit, he muttered. He then quickly ran over to Itachi with an expectant look in his eyes. Can I try? Itachi raised his hand slowly. He then poked Naruto's forehead. Maybe some other time. This is enough for today. Besides, that move is only really viable when used against an opponent that utilizes chakra. We'll be wasting our time if we focus on it now. Itachi explained, resting the gunbai on his shoulder. Naruto pouted childishly, crossing his arms in disappointment. Some training session this was, he had only learned how to swing the damn thing around. Not saying another word, the two started to walk back to the apartment. Whipped, that was how Naruto felt. He was currently walking towards the Occult Research Club building, like he does almost every damn day, but this time he was carrying Rias in his arms. Apparently, the girl didn't like the fact that he had snuck out of bed so early. So he had to compensate for the time Rias had spent without him in bed. Before Naruto could even say Kamui, Rias had already jumped in his arms. You know, I could always just teleport myself away and just leave you here. Naruto said, slightly annoyed. Rias giggled in response and leaned her head against Naruto's chest. Don't be so grumpy, Naruto-kun. I know you would never leave me. She replied with a playful smirk. Naruto chuckled slightly. I guess that's true. So what are the plans for today? I guess since you guys are not chasing after holy swords anymore, it's back to the regular work. Naruto asked. Rias sighed softly. To be honest, she was quite happy that the whole fallen angel drama was finished. Yes, I guess it's back to our regular lives for us now. Rias answered. Then why did I have to tag along? I'm not a devil, and I'm sure you could have handled your club business just fine without me. Naruto said with narrowed eyes. As much as he loved Rias, he actually had some better things to do than hanging around with her goons. Rias just laughed softly and wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck. She brought her face close to his. Because it's much fun with you around, Naruto-kun. She whispered in his ear. Naruto rolled his eyes but smiled nonetheless. The two remained silent for the rest of the walk. It was rather pleasant for Naruto. He certainly appreciated the silence because of all the incoming's headache he would have to deal with soon. Unfortunately, he would already have to deal with one of those headaches. Naruto bit his lip tightly to suppress a shout of frustration that was about to come out of his mouth. 4 figures were standing in front of the school gates. Naruto instantly recognized one of the figures as Issei, who looked a bit confused. The figure standing across Issei was none other than Vali. Yuuto and Zenovia were also present and had both pointed their blades at Vali's neck. Vali seemed unfazed however. Of all the times he could choose to talk, the banana had to do it now. Naruto grumbled to himself. He gently placed Rias on her feet and the two approached the others. Vali seemed to brighten slightly as he saw Rias and Naruto approaching him. What's the meaning of this, White Dragon Emperor? Rias asked sternly. Vali chuckled as he gently placed one of his hands on Zenovia's durandal, making the blue-haired girl narrow her eyes. You must be Rias Gremory, Issei's king. I certainly hope you've been raising him properly, otherwise the boy won't survive when he will face me. Vali said with a smirk, making Rias narrow her eyes as well. Don't play games with me. If you're siding with the fallen angels, I won't deal with you more than necessary. Rias said, her voice filled with suspicion. What do you want with Issei? Yeah? Why the hell would you want to fight me? We don't even know each other. Issei shouted. Vali closed his eyes and smirked again. I'm afraid you wouldn't understand. We two are destined to fight each other. Vali opened his eyes and looked at Issei. But you're still weak. I'm not one of those devils constantly talking about the purity of our blood, but you're merely a reincarnated pawn, a low-class devil. How are you planning on defeating me, a descendant of Lucifer? Vali sighed and shook his head. You can't even be considered a warm-up now. Issei gritted his teeth and glared at Vali, rage evident in his eyes. Vali smirked once again and was preparing to make his leave, but not before giving Issei his last message. Become stronger, Haidu. I want to enjoy fighting with you. Remember this however, no matter how strong you become, I'll crush you beneath my feet. Vali said before disappearing. Issei clenched his fist and looked down to the ground. Well, that was unexpected. Naruto muttered. Rias-chan, I forgot something important back at my house. I'm gonna get it real quick. Naruto said as he activated his Sharingan. Rias crossed her arms under her bust. Fine, I'll let you go this time. But you better come back, understand? She said sternly. Naruto gave her a grin and quickly disappeared inside the swirl of his Kamui. Somewhere else, Vali sighed as he walked through the streets of Kuo, his hands in his pockets. His meeting with the Red Dragon Emperor was disappointing to say the least. Vali loved winning his battles, there's no doubt, but there had to be at least some kind of challenge. Everything feels better when you take a little damage, after all. To be honest, the blonde boy that hadn't said a word interested Vali more than Issei did. That boy no, man he had an extremely powerful aura radiating from him. It reminded Vali of Madara. Vali's brow furrowed at the thought of Madara. The mysterious masked man had apparently been hanging around with Azazel for quite a while. He wasn't a fallen angel, devil or any other kind of supernatural being. He was just human, and that was what surprised Vali the most. Of course, Vali's urge to fight strong opponents kicked in, and he promptly challenged Madara to a fight. Madara then proceeded to make a mockery out of Vali and his sacred gear and beat him into a bloody pulp. Vali's respect for Madara had increased tenfold, and the desire to fight him again increased as well. Vali turned left into an alley, taking a shortcut. He knew he wouldn't be able to fight Madara now, but that didn't make him stop thinking about it. He now had other matters to focus on. Crap, I have to meet Ophis and the others too, Vali muttered to himself. The Cows Brigade was planning to make their first big move during the three-faction meeting, and Vali had to be prepared for it. And what's up with you, parading around town like that? Vali turned around and came to face with none other than Madara. Vali chuckled slightly at the sight of his true rival. What a pleasant surprise, Madara-san. You haven't come to fight me again, have you? Vali asked with a smirk on his face. Madara sighed and crossed his arms. It's always fighting with you, isn't it? As much as I enjoy a good dance, you never even stop thinking about it. But that's not what I came for. Your advances towards the Red Dragon Emperor worry me. Madara said. Vali snorted in response. Please, there's nothing to worry about. The boy is weak, clearly more intent on pursuing his pathetic dream than becoming stronger. You on the other hand, interest me way more. That's one of the reasons I declared you my eternal rival. Vali said, the smirk having returned to his face. I see. Don't mess the boy up too much when the time comes, he's valuable for my plans. Vali rose his eyebrow up in response to Madara's words. Oh? And why is that? Vali asked, making Madara chuckle. I'm afraid that information belongs to my personal affairs, Vali. Madara said in an amused tone. Your meetings with the Ouroboros dragon are a different matter, however. Vali's eyes widened. Had Madara heard him talking to himself? I have no idea what you're talking about, Vali replied. Madara just chuckled and shook his head. There's no need to hide it from me, Vali. It's not like I'm going to bail you out to Azazel or anything. In fact, I'm meeting with Ophis myself soon. What was your little group called again? The Cows Brigade. Madara asked. You know Ophis? How? Vali asked, ignoring Madara's own question. Indeed I do. You could say we're acquaintances of sorts. Madara answered. Vali narrowed his eyes at the masked man. Are you planning on betraying Azazel? Vali asked a question again. This time Madara did not chuckle, he laughed out loud. Betraying Azazel? Madara asked between laughs. Don't be a fool, boy. I was never loyal to Azazel in the first place. I do consider him a friend however, so that's why I'm still playing along with him. It amuses me that you call me out on betraying Azazel, even though you're probably going to do it yourself. But Azazel doesn't have to know about our little escapades, right? Now it was Vali's turn to laugh. You truly are an interesting man, Madara-san. I think I made the right choice by naming you my rival. I guess being rivals isn't so bad if you would stop begging for a fight every single time we meet. It is now time for me to depart. I'll drop by Azazel's place later. Now be sure to be there when I meet with Ophis, alright? Madara activated his Kamui and disappeared, leaving Vali to his thoughts. Naruto was sure about it, he hated the summer. Naruto had appeared right in front of the clubroom's door after his little talk with Vali. He had decided to not enter the room yet and listen to the conversation that was going on inside the room. Apparently, Azazel had decided to be a giant douchebag and had revealed his true identity as the leader of the Grigori to Issei. But that wasn't the biggest issue. Naruto was currently lying on a deck chair, Akeno sitting beside him. The others were all bathing in the pool, clearly having a good time. The club had been tasked with cleaning the pool, and after that they could use it themselves. Naruto had been dragged into this as well, much to his own dismay. "So Naruto-kun, when are we going to have our affair?" Akeno asked teasingly. Naruto didn't even bother looking at her. "Akeno-chan, you have to understand, I have a girlfriend now. Those kind of things are out of question," Naruto answered. This didn't stop Akeno, however. "But doesn't that make it even more interesting? Can you imagine the look on Butchu's face when she catches us?" Akeno bit her lip to stop a sound from coming out. She then pushed her own chair closer to Naruto's. "Why don't you just go along, Naruto-kun? Am I not attractive enough for you?" she asked as she leaned over towards Naruto, making him feel slightly uncomfortable since he was staring right into her cleavage. That's not it. You are an incredibly attractive young lady, Akeno-chan. I just literally told you, Rias won't like it," Naruto answered with an annoyed sigh. His answer made Akeno smirk. "Oh, that much is obvious. But you didn't anything about yourself, it's always Rias this and Rias that. Why don't you give in to your own desires?" Akeno whispered in a sultry voice. Naruto could feel her warm breath on his face as Akeno was now almost hanging over him. Meanwhile in Naruto's mind, Madara and Kurama were watching the situation attentively. Madara was grinning like a maniac, while Kurama looked on fearfully. "What are you doing, Naruto?" Kurama shouted. "Don't cheat on Rias, you idiot." "Yes, my boy," Madara exclaimed as he rubbed his hands together. "Cheat on her? Have an affair with Akeno? Succumb to the dark side?" Back in the real world, things weren't going well for our blonde protagonist. Naruto felt like crying. A very angry Rias had stepped out of the pool and was now marching over to him and Akeno. Rias glared at Akeno, who gave her trademark smile in return. "Just what do you think you're doing, Akeno?" Rias asked with narrowed eyes. Akeno giggled in response as she stood up from her own chair and promptly lied down on Naruto's body, making a faint blush appear on his face. "We weren't doing anything special, but you. Naruto-kun and I were just discussing all the kinky things we were about to do tonight," Akeno replied with a smile. Naruto gulped as he saw a red aura radiating from Rias. Deciding he had seen enough conflict between women, Naruto quickly activated his Kamui and phased through Akeno. Ignoring the shouts of the two girls, Naruto pumped chakra in his legs and ran for his dear life. Once he thought he had created some safe distance, he stopped to catch his breath. "So this is how Sasuke felt back in the academy," Naruto muttered as he looked up to the sky. "I pray for your wretched soul even now, you bastard." "Naruto-san." A voice called out for him from behind. Naruto quickly turned around to see Zenovia standing behind him. "Hi there," Naruto said calmly as he waved at Zenovia. "Zenovia, right?" Zenovia nodded before a faint blush appeared on her cheeks. "I have a favor to ask, Naruto-san," Zenovia said, trying to keep herself calm. Naruto's eyebrow rose up in response. "Okay. So what do you want? Come on girl, spill it. I don't have much time," Naruto said impatiently, glancing around for any signs of Rias or Akeno. "I've seen you fighting against Kokabiel, the power of your eyes is incredible. I also sensed a great amount of holy energy inside you, so please." Zenovia took a deep breath. "Make me bear your children," she exclaimed. Naruto blinked a few times before his face turned red and he rapidly took a few steps back. "What the fuck is wrong with you all?" Naruto shouted as he pointed his finger at Zenovia accusingly. "First there's Rias who won't even let me look at another girl, then you have Akeno who can't get a message, and then you suddenly come up to me with some weird pregnancy fantasy. I understand your confusion, but I need to have strong children. Well, we may not share feelings for each other now, I'm sure a few practice sessions will help," Zenovia said seriously as she started to approach Naruto. Naruto quickly took a few steps back. "Don't come any closer. I swear, this has to be the 100th time that I'm being," Naruto said to himself in despair. This time Itachi wouldn't be there to save him. Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, Akeno and Rias decided to appear. Rias quickly made her way over to Naruto and trapped him in a hug. "I want to make this clear," Rias said sternly as she glared at Akeno and Zenovia. "You're my servants, and you're supposed to obey me. And when I say that Naruto is only mine, I mean it. I don't care how many angels, devils or yokai try to get him. The original Leviathan herself can try to rise from the dead, and I won't give him to her. He's mine and mine alone," she exclaimed as she shoved Naruto's head into her bosom. Zenovia just watched on with narrowed eyes while Akeno brought a hand up to her mouth and giggled softly. "Ara, I say we have a foursome," Akeno proposed. "I'm sure Naruto-kun won't mind that." "I use my right to remain silent," Naruto said defiantly. Rias smiled and started stroking his hair. "There's no need to say anything, Naruto-kun. I know that you would only make love to me," Rias said in a sultry tone. Her statement caused the two other girls to actively voice their protest. Naruto sighed as he came to the conclusion that his life would never be the same again. Naruto tickled his fingers on the armrest of the couch impatiently. Everyone had returned back to the club room because apparently there were still some things to discuss. With the three-faction meeting coming up soon, this wasn't really a surprise for Naruto. He quickly looked over the room and everyone was present. Rias was sitting behind her desk, glaring at Akeno who was sitting next to Naruto. Asia, Issei and Kaneko were sitting on the couch opposite Naruto. Issei was biting his shirt in jealousy because of Naruto's advances with the ladies, Asia was trying to comfort him, and Kaneko was silently eating some sweets. Zenovia and Yuuto had chosen to stand. That reminded me of Naruto. He still had to give Yuuto a gift so he would uphold his part of the little deal they made. Suddenly, a magic circle appeared in the middle of the room. Sirzechs and Grayfia stepped out of the circle, much to everyone's surprise. "Brother," Rias exclaimed as she stood up from her chair. "What are you doing here? The meeting is still a few days away." "Good to see you too, Ria-tan," Sirzechs replied with a smile. "Grayfia and I decided to drop by a bit earlier to find a suitable location for the meeting, and I couldn't miss out on my little sister's class observation day," Sirzechs said happily as he walked over to Rias and patted her head. Rias quickly swatted his hand away. "Brother. You're embarrassing me again," she whined. Sirzechs just laughed at his little sister's expense. "Don't get carried away, Lucifer-sama," Grayfia scolded Sirzechs. "We came here for business as our main priority." Naruto rose an eyebrow at Grayfia's behavior. She already seemed to act rather coldly when Naruto first met her. "Boy, Sirzechs. Isn't this woman supposed to be your wife? She certainly doesn't act like it," Naruto remarked. Ria's peerage seemed quite surprised at how casually Naruto addressed the Satan. Sirzechs immediately lost his interest in Rias and marched over towards Naruto. "Naruto-kun, my boy. How have you been doing?" Naruto and Sirzechs grinned as they bumped fists with each other. "And to answer your question, Grayfia takes her job way too seriously. She doesn't like to show her passionate flames of love for me when we're in public," Sirzechs explained. This resulted in Grayfia pinching his cheeks. "Oh Grayfia. Release me at once." Sirzechs tried to speak. Rias buried her face in her hands in reaction to her brother's idiocy, while all the others looked on in amusement. "Only once you cease this foolishness, Lucifer-sama," Grayfia said sternly. Sirzechs rapidly nodded his head and Grayfia released him. Sirzechs rubbed his cheek before returning his attention to Naruto. "I'm sorry about that," Sirzechs said sheepishly. "By the way, we're staying at your place, Naruto-kun. I've already talked to Itachi about it. So why don't you and Ria-tan come with us now?" Naruto frowned slightly. He had to meet both Azazel and Ophis tonight. Sneaking out with Sirzechs around would be slightly harder, but he'd have to manage. Naruto stood up from the couch and dusted himself off. "Well, let's go then. We wouldn't want to keep Itachi waiting," Naruto said with a smile as he and Sirzechs walked back to the middle of the room. Rias and Grayfia also quickly joined them. Sirzechs was about to cast his magic circle, but was interrupted by Issei. "Wait," he shouted as he shot up from the couch. Naruto sighed as Issei was now standing in front of him. "What is it, Haidu? Make it what the hell?" Naruto muttered in confusion as Issei suddenly got on his hands and knees and bowed down to Naruto. "Please. Train me," Issei shouted. Naruto narrowed his eyes and crossed his arms. It was actually in his best interest to keep Issei weak, and training him would certainly not help with that. "Why should I bother training you?" Naruto asked rather coldly. Issei, who was still bowing down, clenched his fists tightly. "I'm still too weak," Issei said through gritted teeth. "I couldn't do anything to stop Butchu's engagement, I couldn't help when we were fighting Kokabiel, and now that dude from earlier told me that it's my destiny to fight him. And with people like Madara walking around, how am I supposed to protect my friends?" Issei muttered softly. Naruto didn't seem convinced however. Naruto quickly threw a glance toward Sirzechs, who shrugged, leaving the matter to Naruto. "I guess I can help you out," Naruto stated with a shrug. Issei's head rose from the ground, his eyes filled with hope. "Really? Thank you," Issei shouted as he started to hug Naruto's legs. Naruto's expression turned to one of disgust as he tried to shake Issei off. "Boy, don't slobber on my clothes," he shouted, making Issei release him. An evil smirk then made its way to Naruto's face. "Tell me, where can I buy some green spandex?" Naruto and Sirzechs were laughing out loud as they observed the situation. They had now arrived in Naruto's apartment and were now watching Issei train using Naruto's ultimate training method through the window. Itachi was watching as well, only he didn't voice his amusement as vocally. Itachi had instead buried his face in his hands as his body shook with silent laughter. Naruto was probably going to have a concussion after this, since Madara and Kurama were also laughing like maniacs inside his head. Outside on the streets, Issei was dressed in a green spandex suit and was also wearing legwarmers. He was punching and kicking around, jumping through the air and occasionally shouting about the sacred power of youth. I can't believe he actually believed me, Naruto said in between laughs. The only thing that's missing is a bowl cut. This conjured up a picture in Sirzechs' mind, where Issei was still dressed in the spandex outfit but now had his hair in a bowl cut. The Issei in Sirzechs' mind flashed him a bright smile and gave him a thumbs up. This mental image only caused Sirzechs to laugh even harder. Stop it, you're killing me. Sirzechs managed to mutter out as he wiped a few tears from his eyes. I should visit more often. I'm missing out on so much fun without you, Naruto-kun. Naruto slowly calmed down as well, occasionally letting out a laugh as he clutched his stomach. Be my guest, Sirzechs. Just think about all the pranks we could pull. Naruto and Sirzechs then proceeded to embrace each other, much to everyone's dismay. The two started chuckling slowly and soon the chuckling turned into full-blown evil laughter. Itachi rubbed his eyes at the sight of the unholy duo. I think I'm going blind again, Itachi muttered. Sirzechs and Naruto were about to continue with their evil acts, but Rias and Grayfia pulled the two apart. Sirzechs and Naruto tried to reach out for each other, but it was to no avail. No, Naruto-kun. Don't leave me. Sirzechs shouted dramatically. You will always be in my heart, Nai-san. Naruto shouted before Rias dragged him into the bedroom and closed the door. Sirzechs had to hold back a sob at Naruto calling him Nai-san. It was emotional to say the least. Itachi's eye twitched slightly at the whole Nai-san drama. Inside the bedroom, Naruto was currently sitting on his bed. Rias was still standing, her hands on her hips as she leveled Naruto with a stern look. Alright, we got carried away. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. Naruto apologized, even though deep inside he knew that he was going to continue his evil plans with Sirzechs. Rias frowned in response to Naruto's statement. That's not the problem here, Naruto-kun. Even though it was extremely traumatizing, Rias shuddered as an image of Naruto and Sirzechs laughing together flashed before her eyes. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. Why did you lie to Issei? Naruto groaned. He could not tell Rias that he was purposely trying to keep Issei weak. It was just a little prank, nothing more. I don't understand why you're getting so worked up about it, Naruto said with a shrug. Rias didn't look convinced, however. Then I had no idea you and brother could be so cruel. Didn't you see how serious he was back at the club room? He threw himself at your feet and begged you to train him, and then you pull something like this. How could you? Rias asked. She was slightly disappointed in Naruto, to be honest. Look, it's not my problem that he's as weak as he is now. It is not my responsibility to ensure that he becomes stronger, so don't act like I just committed the worst crime in the world, Naruto said in self-defense. But you didn't have to lie to him. He just wants to get stronger and protect us. Is there something wrong with that? Rias asked as she looked at Naruto pleadingly. Naruto sighed in frustration as he stood up from the bed. I won't train him. I just told you, it's not my responsibility. Don't shove everything on me, Rias. As far as I know, you haven't done shit yourself to make Issei stronger. I'm not the boss of his peerage, after all. So tell me, Rias, did I become your boyfriend because you love me or because you needed someone to do all the dirty work for you? Naruto asked with a small smile on his face. Rias was speechless. It was true what he said, she hadn't done a single thing to get Issei stronger. Yet a part of her ego didn't agree with Naruto. She didn't answer Naruto's question in the end, making the blonde chuckle. So I guess, Naruto said to himself as he marched out of the room. Naruto-kun, wait. Rias shouted, but Naruto had already closed the door behind him. Naruto entered the living room again and saw that Itachi, Grayfia and Sirzechs were sitting on the couch. Sirzechs looked at Naruto with a soft smile. Your first argument, eh? Don't worry about it too much, Naruto-kun. Things like that are only natural in relationships. Sirzechs tried to cheer Naruto up. Don't want to talk about it. Naruto grumbled. He turned his head towards Itachi and beckoned for him to come over. Itachi stood up and walked over towards Naruto, who pulled him into a hug. Be sure to check on Arena later, she'll be our main key to heaven. Naruto whispered. Make sure that she's on our side, use Genjutsu if necessary. Itachi nodded slightly. What about Freed and Excalibur? Itachi asked. Don't worry about that, I'll deal with it. Naruto reassured. The two then separated from the hug and Naruto walked towards the door. I have some stuff to take care of. I'll probably be back tomorrow morning. Enjoy your stay, Sirzechs, Grayfia-san. Naruto said with a nod before leaving the apartment. Naruto decided to go for a walk before he'd get to business. The devil woman seems to have upset you. Naruto cast his eyes sideways towards the ghostly form of Madara. Naruto scoffed slightly at the appearance of the ancient Itachi. So you finally decided to show up. You certainly like to show up at interesting times, Maddie-chan. Naruto stated as he kept on walking. Forgive me, the fox kept annoying me. It was necessary for me to deal with him first. Madara said. Whatever, your little bitch fights with Kurama don't interest me. Naruto waved Madara off. Madara rose an eyebrow at Naruto's attitude. I just can't, Maddie-chan. Naruto said as he sighed softly. I hate it that Rias get so fucking wild about the fact that I won't make Issei stronger. Perhaps you're just jealous. Madara suggested. Naruto snorted. Me, jealous. Please, Maddie-chan. But they do say the devils are selfish. Maybe I adopted some of their mannerisms and want to keep Rias all for myself. Naruto trailed off with a chuckle, making Madara frown. Don't compare yourself to those devils, Naruto. You're far above them. If you need to get away, find your comfort in someone else. Madara said before disappearing, making Naruto feel slightly confused. Back in Naruto's mind, Madara appeared before Kurama with a smirk on his face. Team Akeno. 1. Team Rias. 0. Yuuto was walking towards his house, a small smile on his face. Things were just going so well, and it made him happy. The club was doing great, Kokabiel had been defeated, Freed and Excalibur were gone, it was all too good to be true. Yuuto stopped walking when he noticed that the air started getting colder. His eyes narrowed when he saw some kind of object rolling towards him. His eyes widened in horror when he realized what it was. It was a head. Valper's head. You don't look so happy anymore. A voice rang out from behind Yuuto. Yuuto slowly turned around to see Madara standing behind him. Madara. What's the meaning of this? Oh? Is there a problem? I'm just fulfilling my end of the bargain. I destroyed Excalibur for you, and I gave you Valper's head. Or maybe I took that part too literally. Madara laughed at himself. Now it's time for you to do your part. Madara said as he walked closer to Yuuto. Yuuto wanted to run, he felt like he wasn't in his right mind when he decided that he would work with Madara. But he realized that he couldn't move. What stopped him? And what happens if I refuse? Yuuto asked. Suddenly, Yuuto wasn't out on the streets anymore. He found himself in some old abandoned building. He looked around and was absolutely terrified by the scene he saw. Blood. Blood everywhere. Yuuto saw the mangled body of Issei lying on the ground, his left arm ripped off. Yuuto looked to his left to see the bodies of Akeno, Zenovia and Kaneko lying against the wall, their throats slit open. Yuuto looked to his right and saw the corpses of Rias and Naruto lying next to each other, holes where their stomachs once were. Yuuto looked down to see himself being impaled by a black rod. It became too much for him to handle, he felt it slipping. Yuuto's eyes shot open, sweat dripping down his forehead. Madara was still in front of him and he was still in the same street. That's what will happen. Madara stated calmly. Don't try and be a hero, your friends won't be able to escape from me. But no harm shall come to them if you just play along. What do you want? Yuuto managed to say, still shaken up by what he just saw. I already told you before, information is what I want. There might be a chance that you'll be involved with certain devil business which I can't see. You'll tell me everything about your peerage's activities or any improvements of the members, is that clear? Madara asked. Yuuto nodded weakly. He just couldn't disobey, or else he would be risking everyone's life. Good. Once the time comes, I'll use you for something else, but that will have to wait for now. Have a good day. Madara's laughter echoed through the empty streets as he disappeared. Yuuto dropped to his knees, finally being relieved of the huge pressure Madara's presence left behind. Azazel sighed as he took another sip of wine. Looks like Kokabiel wasn't able to listen after all, and now he was looked up in the deepest part of the underworld. Oh well, he still had Barakiel and Shemhazai to rely on. It wasn't like Kokabiel had been the most important guy around. Why hello there, Azazel. Azazel smiled weakly as Madara entered the room and sat down next to him. Azazel poured himself another glass of wine. So what brings you here today, Madara? I don't think you came here just to hang out with little old me. Azazel said jokingly as he drank his wine. I've come here with some new questions. I recently got interested into devil magic and I'm hoping you could tell me some more about it. Madara said. Naruto was actually really interested in devil magic. Since he already possessed some light attribute in his body, why not do some research on devil magic? Well, there's not much to tell about it. Azazel said as he rubbed his chin in thought. There's some basic spells here and there. Then you have the higher classed clans with their unique powers. The Bales and the Gremories with their power of destruction, the Citries with their water manipulation, the Phoenix with their fire manipulation, you name it. Isn't there another unique type of devil magic? Like something exclusive to one person and something that doesn't pass on through blood? Madara asked. A thoughtful look made its way to Azazel's face as he took another sip of his wine. Well, there's one thing I can think of, but no, the guy's been dead for years, now Azazel muttered. This piqued Madara's interest however. Tell me, who are you talking about? Madara asked. Azazel laughed and waved him off. It's nothing, Madara. I could tell you as much as I want about this type of devil magic, but the only user of it has been dead for a long time. There's no way you would be able to get your hands on that, but let's move on to some other matters. I've seen you've taken quite some interest in the devils in this area. Care to explain why? Azazel asked. That's it, they simply interest me. Madara answered. One of them holds extremely potent sacred gear, and the king of the peerage is the sister of a Satan. What's not interesting about that? Madara chuckled at the end. So that's how it is. Well, if you're going to hang around the devils, I have a favor to ask you. Azazel said, turning serious. What is it that you ask of me? I need you to watch Akeno, you know her, she's the queen of Rias Gremmary's peerage. Barakiel is always worried about her, and I can't help but to feel some concern too. Azazel said with a small frown on his face. Why doesn't your friend Barakiel take any action himself? Madara asked, slightly confused. It was only a father's job to look after his daughter, right? Azazel sighed. That's because Akeno wants nothing to do with him. Barakiel's name makes her sick. She blames him for the death of her mother, and Barakiel never even got the chance to apologize. With this, all the fallen angels in general are also put in a bad light, since Barakiel is one of my higher-ups. I can't let all those high-class devils see us like constant pests forever, can I? Azazel finished with a small smile. I see. Madara said with a nod. So this is basically more about your reputation than about the girl. Azazel laughed slightly. Well, it's my job as a faction leader. Do you think it will be profitable for me if Princess goes to Sirzechs and tells him how I've been toying around with one of her servants? This isn't just about Akeno, my friend. My job as the leader of the Grigori comes first. Why do you think I retreated from the Great War? Do you remember the results? Almost all the devil clans got wiped out and the old Satans got killed. I don't want that sort of thing to happen to the fallen angels. Azazel explained, making Madara hum in understanding. Very well, I shall look after Akeno. Only on one condition. Madara said as he rose his hand up. Azazel chuckled in response. Always trying to profit from the situation, eh? Azazel said, slightly amused. Name your condition. Madara's smirk could not be seen under his mask. Tell me about that special devil magic you mentioned before. Just some information is already enough. Azazel leaned back. Where should I start? Madara-san, what a pleasant surprise. Madara sighed in frustration as he turned his head to see Vali standing in the doorway, a wry smirk on his face. What do you want, Vali? The grown-ups are talking here. Madara said in an annoyed tone. Vali just chuckled. Mind going for a walk with me? Vali asked. Naruto cursed under his mask. He knew he had to meet with Vali sooner or later today. Vali would probably keep pestering him if he refused, so had no other choice but to comply. It seems we'll have to talk later, Azazel. Madara said as he stood up from the couch. Azazel gave him a lazy wave. Have fun you two. He muttered as he grabbed a new bottle of wine. Vali and Madara left the apartment shortly after. Where are we going? Madara asked suspiciously. Vali laughed as he pointed forward. I would like to introduce you to some people. Vali answered with a smirk. They're a few members of my team. If you're going to work with Ophis, it's necessary to know your colleagues, don't you think? Madara said nothing in response. The two silently entered the forest and made their way towards a small clearing. Naruto narrowed his eyes under the mask, he recognized this place. He had trained here with Senjutsu before. What took you so long, Naya? Madara and Vali turned around and came to the side of a very familiar yokai. Kuroka quickly made her way over to Madara and started sniffing him. Madara took a few steps back, but Kuroka took hold of him tightly. You smell familiar, Naya. Kuroka muttered as she stopped sniffing. Vali's eye twitched in annoyance. So that's why you smelled so familiar. You have Shirin smell all over you, Naya. Kuroka concluded. Naruto's eyebrow rose up. Shirin? Naruto repeated in a confused tone. Who's that? Oh, she's my little sister. She's kind of small, has white hair and likes sweets. I'm pretty sure you know her, Naya. Naruto's eyes widened in realization. Kaneko-chan is your little sister? He asked incredulously. That would explain her strange cat-like behavior when he patted her head, it all made sense now. So that's her name now, Kaneko. Kuroka muttered with a sad smile. Naruto frowned slightly, apparently Kuroka still cared about her little sister a lot. We should get going, we shouldn't keep Vali waiting any longer. Naruto said with a sigh as he stood up. He quickly pulled his hood back up and placed his mask back up on his face. He turned towards Kuroka, red eyes shining through the holes of his mask. Let's go. He said in Madara's voice and started walking. Kuroka quickly followed him. After a while, they arrived at the clearing. Vali was still standing there, an annoyed look on his face. But now another young man had joined Vali. He had blonde hair and was wearing glasses. He was dressed in a rather fancy suit and was carrying two swords with him. What took you two so long? Vali asked in annoyance. Madara chuckled as he waved Vali off. Kuroka and I had some catching up to do. Madara answered casually. He then turned his head towards the blonde-haired man. And who is this? Madara asked. How rude of me. The blonde man scolded himself. He then stepped forward, placed a hand on his heart and bowed towards Madara. I am Arthur Pendragon. I am also part of Vali's team. It is a pleasure to finally meet you after hearing so much about you, Madara-san. Arthur introduced himself. Likewise. Madara responded with a nod. So why did you bring these two along, Vali? I take you didn't do this just for the pleasantries. Madara asked, making Vali laugh. Quite observant of you. I brought Kuroka and Arthur with me to test your abilities once again, Madara-san. Vali answered with a smirk. Madara sighed tiredly, so he wanted to fight again. Very well then. But don't expect that this will make any difference. Madara said as he got ready. Vali spread his wings and Arthur unsheathed his blade. Oh, you possess a holy sword as well? Madara asked as he observed Arthur's blade. I have two actually. Arthur said calmly as he pushed his glasses up. This is Excalibur, also known as the ultimate holy sword. Interesting. Madara said as he looked over the sword. This Arthur was certainly a special one with his two holy swords. Naruto had to get more information about the man later. Enough talk. Let's fight. Vali shouted, barely holding back his excitement. He quickly activated his balance breaker and the white armor started to surround him. Arthur sighed as he saw Vali immediately charge towards Madara, only to phase right through him. Vali used his wings to stop himself from crashing into the trees. You still haven't learned, I see. Madara taunted. Let me show you how to dance properly. In a flash, Madara in front of Kuroka. Since he didn't feel like fighting her for some reason, Madara used a genjutsu to knock Kuroka out. He then proceeded to coat his right fist with chakra and charged at Arthur. Arthur used Excalibur to block the incoming blow. Madara quickly activated his Kamui and phased through Arthur. Once Madara had appeared behind him, he aimed another blow at Arthur's head. Arthur managed to quickly turn around and block the strike again. Your reflexes are certainly impressive, Arthur. Madara praised. I'll come back to test you later. Madara jumped back, creating distance between Arthur and himself. Madara was forced to activate his Kamui again, since Vali sent some blue lightning towards him. Madara quickly materialized himself again, and Vali took his chance by charging at him again. Just as Vali was about to make contact with Madara's body, a ribsage stopped Vali. Vali scoffed as he saw Madara's Susanoo. This thing had caused Vali's downfall in their previous encounter. Vali quickly flew back towards Arthur. We need to break that thing. Vali told Arthur. I've came to that conclusion myself. Arthur said with narrowed eyes. But how are we going to do that? Vali smirked under his armor. We simply hit it until it breaks. Vali exclaimed as he flew towards Madara. The Susanoo entered its humanoid form and manifested its chakra blades. As soon as Vali was close enough, the Susanoo started to wildly swing around its blades, cutting down the trees and destroying the earth. Arthur sighed at Vali's behavior, the devil had no patience. Don't look so upset, Arthur, I've made sure that you won't miss out on any fun. Arthur's eyes widened as he turned around to see Madara standing behind him. But how? Arthur quickly cast his eyes towards Vali's direction, only to see Vali still fighting Madara and his Susanoo. You're fighting Vali, how can you be at two places at the same time? Madara laughed at the confused Arthur. You see, Vali isn't actually fighting me. He's fighting an empowered clone. Madara explained. I actually wanted to test something out against you, Arthur. They say you have to fight fire with fire after all. Madara finished with a chuckle. He then used his Kamui to eject an object out of his eye. Arthur's eyes widened to unbelievable proportions as he observed the object Madara was holding. How did you obtain that blade? Arthur asked quietly. Madara laughed as he swung the fused Excalibur around. Let's say it was a prize I got for defeating a certain fallen angel. Unfortunately, I'm not the best swordsman, so I decided a practice session with another holy sword wielder would be more than appreciated. Now prepare yourself. Madara used the powers of Excalibur rapidly to quickly appear in front of Arthur. The two pushed their swords against each other. Madara started to go on the offensive, rapidly delivering slashes. Arthur managed to parry every attack swiftly and elegantly, unnerved by Madara's enhanced speed. Madara raised his blade and smashed it down on Arthur, but he managed to roll away. Madara pointed his sword in Arthur's direction and extended it using the powers of Excalibur Mimic. Arthur was about to counterattack, but was interrupted by an explosion coming from Vali's direction. Catching him off guard, Madara managed to impale Arthur's shoulder. Arthur gritted his teeth as he looked at the bleeding wound but kept on going. He quickly charged at Madara, who charged towards him as well. The two now had each other's blades at their throats. Let's call this a draw. Madara said, slightly panting. Arthur nodded slowly and removed his blade from Madara's throat, Madara mirroring his action. He would need some more practice with Excalibur later. Madara sighed when he received the memories of his clone and started to make his way over towards Vali, Arthur following suit. After a short amount of time, the two arrived at a small crater. Vali was lying in the middle of the crater, his clothes torn and a bit of blood leaking out of his mouth. Madara walked over towards Vali's body and kicked it slightly. "It seems you got hit by my Yasaka Magatama," Madara said, recalling the memories of the clone. "You thought you could stay safe if you kept enough distance from my Susanoo. Well, at least you managed to dispel my clone." Vali coughed up a bit of blood and was about to retort but was interrupted by the sound of someone clapping. Arthur, Madara and Vali turned their heads to see Ophis approaching them. "You met my expectations, I knew you were strong. With you on my side, we will be able to remove Great Red," Ophis told Madara in her monotone voice. "Ophis, I would like to talk with you in private," Madara said in a serious tone. Ophis nodded and beckoned for him to follow her. Madara then turned towards Arthur and Vali, who had stood up from the ground. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Arthur. I hope we can practice with our sword again soon. And you, Vali, don't be so stupid next time." Ophis and Madara proceeded to leave. Night had already fallen and the moon shone bright as the two left the forest. They soon entered the park and stopped at the fountain. "Damn, why is it always this place?" Naruto muttered as he pulled his hood down and took his mask off. "I like you more without your mask," Ophis remarked. Naruto smiled at the little girl. "Thank you, I guess. Listen up, Ophis, I know I promised to help you get your silence back, but I won't help you with the attack that's targeting the three-faction meeting. It would hurt my reputation and I'm already not the most liked guy," Naruto explained. "Suit yourself. I don't care what you do as long you help me remove Great Red," Ophis spoke in her monotone voice. Naruto just rose an eyebrow. "But why?" Naruto asked. Ophis lifted her in confusion. "Why do you need to remove this Great Red you're constantly talking about? He's too noisy. I just want silence, and that's all," Ophis said calmly, again not showing the tiniest bit of emotion. Naruto didn't look very convinced, however. "But why do you want that silence? Is there any reason for that? Why don't you just go back to wherever this Great Red is and just deal with it?" Naruto asked. Ophis looked down and held her hands together. She murmured something incoherently. "I'm sorry, you got speak a bit louder," Naruto said as he leaned over closer to Ophis. "I don't know," she said softly. "I just want my silence." Naruto grinned and rubbed Ophis's head affectionately, completely disregarding the fact that she was actually one of the most powerful beings in existence. "Don't beat yourself up about it. I guess everyone just has the need sometimes to want something, even if they don't have a legitimate reason," Naruto said kindly. He stopped rubbing Ophis's head and took a few steps back, activating his Sharingan. "I have to go now, Ophis. I have a favor I need to do for a friend of mine," Naruto said with a smile, before using his Kamui to disappear. Ophis touched her head with one of her hands. "That was nice," she muttered to herself. From inside of Naruto's mind, Madara and Kurama had been watching the events of today. Kurama was on the verge of crying, while Madara had a victorious grin on his face. "No, Naruto," Kurama shouted. "Why did you hurt Ria's feelings like that?" Madara laughed boisterously. "Ha. I knew Naruto wouldn't go for her in the end. My shipping senses are always right, Fox. And this Office girl doesn't seem half as bad too. Those eyes must be having some kind of effect on your brain on something," Kurama stated. "First you go for the sadist and now you go for the emotionless loli. You can't just switch sides like that." Madara snorted. "Don't think I will tolerate Naruto dating that spoiled brat any longer. I shall do everything in my power to stop their relationship." Kurama narrowed his eyes at Madara. "We'll see, Ichiha. We'll see." A distortion of space took place. Naruto slowly exited the vortex of his Kamui. Night had fallen over Kuo and the moon shone bright in the sky. Naruto had ditched his Madara outfit and was now dressed in some casual clothes. "So this is where Akeno-chan lives," Naruto muttered to himself. Naruto just stared at the shrine in front of him. Since Akeno's mother had been a Shinto priestess, it wasn't actually that strange that Akeno had taken residence here. He slowly started to walk up the stairs. Once Naruto reached the door of the shrine, he knocked on it. Maybe she's already asleep, Naruto thought. His thoughts were soon proven to be wrong as the door slowly opened, revealing Akeno. "Naruto-kun?" Akeno asked in a surprised tone. Naruto flashed the girl a bright smile. "The one and only. Mind if I come in?" Naruto asked, his smile still on his face. Akeno quickly stepped aside and allowed Naruto to enter the shrine. Naruto carefully looked the place over, it seemed abandoned and old. Akeno smiled as she beckoned for Naruto to sit down. "I'll be right back with some tea," Akeno said before leaving Naruto alone. As Naruto waited for Akeno to return, his mind wandered off. According to Azazel's information, Akeno hated her father and was scorned by the Himejima clan after they discovered her fallen angel heritage. In a way, he could understand Akeno. He hadn't liked the fact that his own father had sealed Kurama inside him and that the villagers despised him for it. But in the end, he had come to terms with it and it turned out to be even better for him. He and Kurama had become best friends and the villagers treated him like a hero. Naruto realized something. He and Akeno were truly alike. Naruto was snapped out of his thoughts by Akeno placing a cup of tea in front of him. She gave her trademark sweet smile and sat down across from Naruto. This is delicious," Naruto exclaimed as he took a sip of the tea. Akeno giggled in response. "I'm glad you like it," Akeno said before taking a sip of her own tea. "So why did you come to visit me, Naruto-kun? I take it you haven't come here for a one-night stand or anything like that?" Naruto chuckled sheepishly. "Well, you see, Rias and I had a little argument. And since I still had some shit to do and didn't feel like going back home, I decided to come to you," Naruto answered. "I see," Akeno said with a nod. The two then continued to drink their tea in silence. That was until Akeno decided to ask Naruto a question. "Say, Naruto-kun," Akeno started. "Do you have a dream?" "A dream?" Naruto repeated. "I do have one actually. But why are you asking?" Akeno giggled softly as she placed her hand on her cheek. "With Issei constantly shouting about his dream to become the harem king, I couldn't help but get curious," Akeno explained. Naruto nodded, a small frown on his face. He didn't really want to think about Issei after his little fight with Rias. "Alright then. To answer your question, my dream is," Naruto proceeded to spread his arms wide, a grin on his face. "Peace." Akeno lifted her head to the side. "Peace. That's quite a big dream," Akeno said with a soft smile. Naruto just kept on grinning. "I've been busy with working for my dream since I was just a kid, Akeno-chan." Naruto's grin disappeared, a serious expression taking its place. "I can see that this world is filled with hatred. I want that to change. I want to create a world where everyone is truly able to understand each other. I want to break the cycle of hatred," Naruto stated. Akeno kept on smiling as she listened to Naruto. The boy really interested her. At first, her advances on him were purely a thing to tease Rias. But over the time, she started to develop something for him. Akeno sighed softly, it was now or never. "Naruto-kun, I would like to tell you something personal," Akeno said in a rather serious tone. Naruto rose up an eyebrow as Akeno started to turn around and slowly pull down her yukata, revealing her back. Naruto was about to start a rant about again, but was silenced when Akeno revealed her wings. One of them was a devil wing, while the other was a fallen angel wing. "I'm a half-breed. My mother was a human and my father was a fallen angel. I was later reincarnated as a devil by Rias, as you know. But my wings didn't change. I'll be forced to bear my cursed heritage forever, this dirty blood flowing through my veins for my whole life." Akeno then turned around and looked at Naruto with a sad smile. "I probably disgust you now. Do you hate me for what I am?" Naruto just blinked a few times before he chuckled slowly, much to Akeno's confusion. "You're really fucking stupid, you know that." Naruto stood up and walked over towards Akeno. He then proceeded to envelop her into a tight hug. "I don't care whether you have fallen angel blood or not," Naruto said softly. "Believe me or not, I know exactly how it feels to be judged for something you have absolutely no control over. Remember, you'll always be the same Akeno-chan to me." Naruto finished with a small smile. Akeno was shocked to her core. She couldn't believe the words that just came out of Naruto's mouth. She wrapped her arms around Naruto and buried her face in his chest, a few tears rolling down her cheeks. "Thank you, Naruto-kun," Akeno muttered quietly. Naruto rubbed her back comfortingly. "It's late, we should get some sleep," Naruto suggested, to which Akeno nodded. Akeno took hold Naruto's hand and guided him towards a futon that was placed in the corner of the room. Naruto took his shirt off and laid down. His face turned red when he saw Akeno starting to strip herself down completely. "You don't mind if I sleep naked, do you?" Akeno asked with a seductive smile playing on her lips. "It seems Ria's habits have corrupted poor little me." Naruto shook his head, his face still flushed. "Go ahead, I've got used to it by now," Naruto muttered, making Akeno laugh. She quickly lied down next to Naruto and pulled the blanket over the both of them. "Didn't you ever feel like giving up?" Akeno asked suddenly as she placed a hand on Naruto's chest. Naruto remained silent for a while before answering. "There were plenty of times when I thought I should just stop. I thought it wasn't worth it anymore, that nothing would change," Naruto said, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. He then turned his head towards Akeno, another bright grin on his face. "But then I remembered there were still some fuckers left that I had to prove wrong." Naruto then quickly muttered a good night and rolled on his side, quickly falling asleep. Akeno wrapped her arms around Naruto's waist. "Did she like him?" No, that would be an understatement. Did she love him? That didn't fit either. This was the day that Akeno became obsessed with Uzumaki Naruto. A purple light flashed upon the abandoned city of Lucifid. This had been the capital of the devils during the reign of the old Satans. After they had died in the Great War and the city of Lilith was named as the new capital, life left the city. A small part of Lucifid was still open for tourism, mainly serving the purpose of introducing the reincarnated devils to the history of the underworld. The center of the city and the former palace of the old Satans had been completely sealed off though, the devils fearful of the dark secrets that their former rulers left behind. Unfortunately, they did not know that a certain group still had access to this part of the city. Another flash of purple appeared above the palace. Inside the palace, a few devils were standing around a large purple magic circle. A young, brown-haired man dressed in black armor was watching the devils work with a magic circle. He growled in frustration as another flash of purple light was seen, but nothing else happened. The bright light disappeared and the magic circle assumed a more dim color. One of the devils standing around looked at the man with an apologetic look on his face. "I'm sorry, Shalba-sama. The ritual can't be completed yet," the devil said with a small bow of his head. Shalba growled again, this time in annoyance. "I can see that. Why?" he asked curtly. "We still lack the necessary amount of demonic energy. Apparently we need even more than we first thought," the devil explained. The descendant of Beelzebub rubbed his forehead in response. This was going to be even more of an annoyance than he first thought. "Perhaps we should cease this, Shalba." Shalba snapped his head towards the other side of the room. His eyes narrowed at the figure who was walking towards him. "Kurusuri." Shalba greeted the descendant of Asmodeus. "Give me a valid reason to stop this. You want the position as Satan as much as I do. It belongs to us, it is our birthright. With him on our side, we can reshape the underworld into what it's supposed to be. Do you think we have the resources to survive another great war? Because we will certainly get another war if he comes back," Kurusuri reasoned, making Shalba grit his teeth. "Why don't we just take our chances now and kill those bastards during the three-faction meeting? It will be less of a hassle. If we help out Kateria at the summit." "Kateria can handle herself, Kurusuri." Shalba cut off Kurusuri with a raised hand. "Well, those bastards that dare to call themselves Satans are nothing but imposters, they are no fools. The attack on the summit is something that is going to be under the name of the Cows Brigade, not the old Satan faction specifically. We need to do something of bigger magnitude. He will truly be able to help us," Shalba explained. Kurusuri crossed his arms and sighed. "Very well then. But with things looking like this, his return is certainly far away," Kurusuri remarked. Shalba ignored him and turned to the other devil who told him about the failure of the ritual. "Tell me, would a devil wielding a long Inus provide enough demonic energy to complete the ritual?" Shalba asked the devil. The devil shrugged in response. "It depends," he answered. "If the demonic energy from the devil is not sufficient, we would be able to use the powers of the sacred gear to compensate for it." "Are you planning on using Vali?" Kurusuri asked with a frown, making Shalba scoff. "Of course not, the boy shares none of our ambitions," Shalba answered with disdain evident in his voice. "There is however another one. Well, he may not share our thoughts and is just one of those filthy reincarnated devils, I'm sure we can use a little force to change his mind," Shalba said with a cruel smirk. Kurusuri's eyes widened. "You're talking about the Welsh dragon, aren't you?" Shalba laughed as he started to leave the room. "Yes indeed. You should prepare yourself, Kurusuri. It turns out we will be attending the summit." "But you just said." "I changed my mind," Shalba answered quickly. "You should be happy, you can be with your dear Kateria now. The sooner we leave, the sooner we can finish this damned ritual." Shalba walked out of the ritual room, deciding to wander the palace a bit more before leaving. He eventually found himself in front of an incredibly large door. Shalba slowly pushed the door open and walked into the room. His eyes widened when he saw what was present at the end of the room. Shalba slowly walked towards the four large thrones. The first throne from Shalba's left had an eerie blue color, decorated with diamonds. The second throne was slightly larger than all the others. It had a black appearance and was decorated with what looked like obsidian. The third throne had a brown-reddish appearance and, unlike the thrones before it, was not as nicely decorated and kept a simple design. The fourth throne had a green color and was decorated with spikes of all sizes and looked not that comfortable to sit on. There was one thing that the thrones had in common though. There was a text engraved in each of them. Shalba's eyes danced from left to right, reading the texts. Leviathan, beast of the sea. Lucifer, father of all devils. Beelzebub, lord of the flies. Asmodeus, infernal demon of lust. Shalba marched over towards the third throne and sat down on it. He leaned back and folded his hands on his stomach, a dark smile playing on his lips. Soon this will be all mine." Again. Naruto answered Madara's command by quickly drawing another seal on the paper. Since Madara had seen that Naruto and Akeno wouldn't go into any further romantic interactions, he decided that this would be a good time for a nice late-night training session. Madara had instructed Naruto to create the same explosive tag over and over again until he was satisfied with the results. Kurama was also present, claiming that he was taking a nap but occasionally taking a peek at Naruto's training. "What the fuck are you, some kind of slave driver?" Naruto snarled as he threw his brush away. "We've been going at it for ages. Just look at how many fucking explosive tags I made." Naruto shouted as he pointed at the massive pile of explosive tags next to him. Madara walked over towards the place where Naruto's brush was now lying and picked it up. He then grabbed an empty tag and turned it into an explosive tag in less than a second. Madara then quickly grabbed 2 other explosive tags from the pile Naruto had created to compare Naruto's tags with his own. This one seems a bit underpowered," Madara muttered as he inspected Naruto's explosive tags. "And this one?" Madara was interrupted by Naruto's shout of frustration. The poor boy looked like he was about to rip his hair out. "Can't we just move on to seals that don't use any ink?" Naruto asked as he gripped Madara by his shoulders. "All this drawing and drawing and drawing, it's driving me crazy, Madara-sensei. I can't even look at these things anymore," Naruto exclaimed as he started to cry into Madara's chest. Madara rubbed Naruto's back rather awkwardly, hoping to comfort the boy. "I hope you realize that those kind of seals are even more complicated than things like sealing tags. How are you planning to create a difficult seal like the forbidden individual curse tag when you have trouble with mere explosive tags? But this was enough for this session, so I guess we can practice something else," Madara finished with a sigh. "I love you, Madara-sensei," Naruto cried out as he hugged Madara. "Release me," Madara demanded. "You're ruining my armor." Naruto grinned as he released Madara and started jumping around excitedly. "So what are you going to teach me? Some kind of Bijudama 2.0? An incredibly flashy Sharingan Genjutsu?" "Actually, I wanted to discuss something first," Madara said, making Naruto pout. "Your Rasen Shuriken, it is actually a completed version of the Rasengan, right?" Madara asked. Naruto nodded in response. "Yeah. You basically add shape manipulation and the wind element and then boom," Naruto said as he clapped his hands together. "You have a Rasen Shuriken. I see," Madara said with a nod to himself. "Do you think it would be possible for you to create a new technique by using a different type of shape and element?" Naruto's eyes widened. That was actually a brilliant idea on Madara's side. "I'm pretty sure I can do that. For what I know about the Rasengan, there are no restrictions to what kind of shape or element can be applied to it. It will take some time though. It already took way too long to create the Rasen Shuriken for my liking, and that was with loads of clones and with Kakashi-sensei and Yamato Taichu helping me out," Naruto said as he rubbed his chin and thought. "That doesn't matter, we have all the time we could possibly need. Now let's get back to the subject, shall we?" Madara said with a smirk as he activated his Sharingan. He then proceeded to form his Susanoo. The Susanoo started to grow bigger and bigger until it reached its complete body form. Naruto stared at the gigantic creature. No matter how many times he would see Madara's Susanoo, it still looked badass. "The day is the day you shall achieve the complete version of this technique, the perfect Susanoo," Madara exclaimed from the top of his Susanoo's head. Naruto grinned excitedly. "Alright. So how do I do this?" Naruto asked, shouted since Madara was way up high and Naruto was still on the ground. "Just form your Susanoo like you usually would, but push even further beyond this time," Madara shouted back. Naruto nodded to himself and activated his own Sharingan. He slowly started to create his Susanoo, first the ribsage, then its skeletal form, its humanoid form and lastly its armored form. Naruto grunted as he felt his Susanoo getting bigger. The strain on his eyes was getting bigger as well. Slowly but surely, the Susanoo started to grow to the same size as Madara's. Its armor changed and wings grew out of its back. Madara smirked. This was good, really good. The boy would be a Sharingan master if he kept up like this. Madara was about to praise Naruto, but suddenly Naruto's black Susanoo crumbled. Confusion dawned upon Madara's face. He quickly deactivated his Susanoo and rushed over towards Naruto, who was sitting on his knees and was rubbing his eyes. "What happened?" Madara asked as he knelt down to Naruto's level. Naruto stopped rubbing his eyes and looked at Madara, his Sharingan already deactivated. "I have no idea," Naruto groaned. "It's like I suddenly lost control or something, maybe I'm just not used to these eyes yet." Madara shrugged. "Well, you've had them for quite some time now. Perhaps you're just having some problem with maintaining the complete body of your Susanoo. Some practice should help with that. After I gained Izuna's eyes, I wasn't able to enter this form immediately as well." Madara then helped Naruto get up before a thoughtful look made its way to Madara's face. It's already morning in the real world. I guess this was enough training for now. Madara said to himself with a nod. Naruto snorted and crossed his arms. Some kind of training this was. All I learned was how to create the final form of the Susanoo, which collapses immediately, and how to make some explosive tags. Naruto whined. Madara sighed in annoyance at Naruto's attitude. A shinobi needs to possess balance skills. Have you ever seen a shinobi who can destroy a mountain but can't throw a shuriken? Madara asked, making Naruto shake his head. Exactly. You need to have knowledge of the basics first. I find it quite amusing that as a genin you were already throwing around high-level techniques, but when it comes to the basics you're acting like you're a fresh academy student. Madara said with a small smile. Naruto looked away and pouted. Whatever, just make sure we do something cool next time. Naruto said before trying to leave his mindscape. He was stopped by Madara however. Naruto. Madara spoke in a serious tone. There's something I need you to do for me. Naruto's eyebrow rose up. Okay. So what do you need? I swear, if this is something about your body again. I need you to have bad with Akeno. Naruto remained silent. He just stared at Madara for what felt like an eternity. Suddenly, his face turned red as he rapidly took a few steps away from Madara. What the hell, Maddie-chan, I have a girlfriend, you know. Do you honestly think I'm going to cheat on Rias? I can decide who I want to sleep with myself, thank you very much. Naruto shouted as he pointed his finger at Madara accusingly. You're literally sleeping with this girl at the very moment, and she's naked. Madara deadpanned. Naruto tried to say something in return, but couldn't get the words out of his mouth. Madara marched over towards Naruto, grabbed his head and pushed it against his own. My pride and honor is at stake here, boy. The fox and I made a bet on whose virginity you would take first, and I can't let you make love to that spoiled brat. Madara shouted, referring to Rias. Do you understand what will happen if I lose? That damned fox is going to use me as a chewing toy for the rest of eternity. Naruto blinked a few times. That does sound extremely horrible to be honest. But it's not like you're going to die or something. So what does Kurama have to do if he loses? Naruto asked. Madara gave a dark chuckle in response. You'll see later. It isn't that hard for you to fulfill my request, right? Just start off like this. Madara proceeded to do a hair flip, much to Naruto's horror. Itachi's romantic advice was already bad enough, but to get dirty advice from Madara himself took the cake. Girl, I must be in the infinite Tsukiyomi. Madara started, wiggling his eyebrows. Naruto could barely hold in his laughter. And why's that? Naruto asked, deciding to play along. Because you're like a dream come true. Naruto burst out laughing, Madara soon joining him. Soon Naruto calmed down, wiping a few tears from his eyes. You know Maddie-chan, you aren't so bad after all. We should hang out more often. But I guess it's time for me to wake up, so I'll see you later. Naruto said with a grin, before disappearing. Madara looked on with a small frown on his face. He had been reminded of an all-too-familiar figure thanks to Naruto. Hashirama. Naruto let out a loud yawn as he sat up straight, stretching his arms. Waking up here was actually way more pleasant than in his own house, since the damn sun wouldn't shine in his face. Naruto was about to get up, but a pair of arms pulled him back down. Naruto turned his head and came to the side of a smirking Akeno. Good morning. Naruto said, slightly doubting his choice of words. Akeno huddled over closer to Naruto, and he could feel her balls pressing up against his chest. Even though he got used to these kind of situations, it still felt weird since this wasn't Rias. A very good morning to you as well. Akeno said as she struck Naruto's cheek. You weren't planning on leaving now, were you? Naruto grinned awkwardly as his eyes quickly scanned over the interior of the shrine, looking for possible escape routes. Actually I was. Everyone back home must be really worried, so I thought I wouldn't make them wait any longer. Naruto explained. Akeno breathed out a sigh of desperation. And here I thought I was finally getting some company. Akeno said in an overly desperate tone. It really gets lonely here, you know. Naruto sighed. He knew how horrible it was to be lonely. But the thing was that he didn't really know if Akeno was just teasing him or was being serious, but he was leaning towards the former. But since he was such a nice guy, Naruto came up with the perfect solution. I'm sure we can spend some time together later. Naruto stated with a shrug. Just drop by my place or something, we'll find something to do. I'll hold you to that. Akeno said, her ever so sweet smile now present on her face. Naruto gave her a small grin before he started to get dressed. Once he was completely dressed, he worded a quick bye to Akeno before using Kamui to teleport himself back to his apartment. He appeared inside the living room. I'm back. Naruto was interrupted by someone pinching his cheek. He winced in pain and cast his sideways to see who had grabbed him and met the Rias' stern gaze. Naruto immediately noticed that Rias wasn't looking that well. She had bags under her eyes, indicating that she didn't have a good sleep last night. Where were you? She asked sternly, though Naruto could detect the concern in her voice. He gently but firmly grabbed Ria's hand and pulled it away from his cheek. "You need to calm down," Naruto said slowly. Rias just stared at him like she was trying to bore a hole in his head. She then suddenly started to hug Naruto, much to his surprise. Naruto just shook his head. "Damn women and their mood swings," he muttered before wrapping his arms around Rias. Rias started only to be cut off by Naruto pressing his finger against her lips. "Hush," Naruto said. "We can talk about this later. School's starting soon." Naruto wasn't in the mood for relationship talk, so postponing it was his best choice. He then looked around the living room, as if he was searching for somebody. It turned out that he indeed was looking for a few people. "Were Itachi and Sirzechs?" Naruto asked. Rias sighed in annoyance as she beckoned towards Naruto's bedroom. Naruto frowned. What kind of business did those two have in his bedroom? Deciding to check the situation out, Naruto walked over towards the door of his bedroom and opened the door. He saw that Itachi and Sirzechs were sitting on his bed, looking at some kind of pictures that Sirzechs was holding. Itachi looked amused while Sirzechs looked like he was in absolute glee. Grayfia was there as well, having assumed her emotionless maid position next to the bed. "Look at this one," Sirzechs exclaimed as he pointed at the picture. "This is the first time little Riatan took a bath. Look how cute she is." Naruto smirked in amusement as he glanced at Rias, who looked incredibly embarrassed by her brother's antics. While Sirzechs continued to freak out over the pictures, Itachi had noticed Naruto's presence and greeted him with a nod. "Welcome home, Naruto-kun," Itachi said in a monotone voice. Sirzechs immediately lost all his interest in the pictures and looked at Naruto with a grin. "Good to see you back, Naruto-kun," Sirzechs exclaimed happily. "Since we're going to be brothers-in-law soon, I decided to strengthen my bonds with Itachi by looking at some pictures of the time Rias was still little." Sirzechs explained as he wrapped his arm around Itachi's shoulders, much to Itachi's horror. Naruto nodded, amused by the duo. "I take it you two didn't forget the whole Parents' Day thing?" Naruto asked. Sirzechs' eyes widened in realization while Itachi just sighed. "Then we must depart now," Sirzechs shouted as he shot up from the bed. He grabbed Rias and Naruto by their hands and dragged them out of the room. Itachi sighed once again. If Naruto and Rias would get married in the future, putting up with Sirzechs would certainly be a challenge. Itachi and Grayfia quickly followed after the three others. Sometime later, the group was on their way to school. Rias, Grayfia and Itachi were walking in front, while Sirzechs and Naruto were trailing behind slightly. "Naruto-kun," Sirzechs addressed the boy rather seriously. "I'd like to discuss a certain subject with you." Naruto's eyebrow rose up. "Alright, what's up?" he asked. Sirzechs turned his head towards him, looking at him with a serious look. "I want you to reconsider becoming a devil." "Hell no," was the blonde's curt response. Sirzechs sighed. This was going to be really troublesome for him. "Look, Naruto-kun. I understand that the idea of being reincarnated as someone's servant might seem extremely unappealing to you, but Rias. Why the hell is it always about Rias?" Naruto asked in a snappy tone. "I want to see her happy too, but do I really have to suffer for it? I understand she's your sister and all, and you're not even obliged to give a single fuck about me, but it would be nice if my feelings would actually be taken in damn consideration for once." Naruto finished with a bitter smile. "I want you to be happy too, honestly," Sirzechs assured Naruto with a kind smile. "But just think about it like this. Devils can grow incredibly old. Have you heard of anyone ruling the devils before the old Satans?" Naruto shook his head. "Exactly. That's just how old we can get. I don't want Rias to suffer later because you're gone and she still has centuries to go," Sirzechs explained. Naruto frowned slightly. Was he willing to sacrifice his humanity for Rias' sake? Itachi and Kurama probably wouldn't mind, but Madara would certainly freak out and never speak to him again. Being a devil would also be a setback for his plans. If any of his darker actions would be discovered, the other devils would take some of the blame as well. He had spent half of his shinobi career trying to prove that he wasn't the Kyuubi, who was considered a demon back then. Being reborn as a devil would certainly make all of that for nothing. "I don't think I'm ready to make such a changing decision at this point in our relationship," Naruto said quietly, earning a confused look from Sirzechs. "I can only believe or reject her words if she says that she loves me, and I'm not really sure about my own feelings myself." "You're spewing nonsense right now. Riatan is heads over heels for you," Sirzechs all but shouted, earning a few curious glances from Itachi and Grayfia. Naruto snorted. "Yeah, she's in love with the boy that saved her from Riser. She's just desperately clutching to that image she created in her head and she doesn't want to lose it. To be honest, we barely even know each other. Of course I still care about her, and I like her too if you get what I'm saying, it's just that I don't feel like ending up like some sort of vacuum cleaner for all the problems that are thrown at Rias." You know you don't have to become a part of Ria's peerage specifically, right? Sirzechs said, a smug smirk playing on his lips. Naruto lifted his head in confusion. I'm offering you a place in my peerage. I still have a few pawn pieces left, and if they're not enough to reincarnate you, I'm sure I can get some mutation pieces from Ajuka. Hell, maybe Ajuka wants you in his peerage himself. Sirzechs trailed off with a chuckle. Naruto's eyes had widened slightly in response to Sirzechs' offer. To be in the peerage of a Satan was no joke. But still, he had different priorities. I'm sorry, my answer is still no. Naruto said in a voice that held no room for argument as he turned his head away from Sirzechs. The Satan sighed as he too averted his gaze. He thought that he could certainly convince the boy by playing the Rias card. Oh well, he still had plenty of chances ahead of him, there was no need to rush the matter. Sirzechs and Naruto did not say a word to each other for the rest of the walk, the only sound that was heard was Rias conversing with Grayfia and Itachi. Soon the school building came into sight, much to Naruto's relief. The tension that was left behind thanks to his and Sirzechs' little conversation was starting to irk him. Naruto suddenly found himself being pulled away by Rias, who looked like she wanted to get away as fast as possible. Alright then. Naruto and I really have to go to our classes now, so we'll see you guys later. Rias said quickly as she dashed off, dragging Naruto with her. Sirzechs laughed at the couple while Grayfia and Itachi just watched on emotionlessly. Oh, the youth these days. They're really something special, don't you think, Itachi? I consider myself young too, for your information. Unlike a certain someone, I am not already a few centuries old. That hurt, you know. Classes went by way too slowly to Naruto's liking. He never really was a fan of school anyways, and the fact that he could almost literally feel Akeno's gaze boring into him from behind didn't help. He was really happy that Rias wasn't in this class, otherwise world's biggest catfight would have broken out here and now. Never thought I would ever see you going to school like a good little student. Naruto's head dropped onto his desk, earning a few curious looks from his classmates. I love you so much right now, Kurama. I thought I was almost going to suffocate in this thick layer of bullshit that this teacher is spewing. Naruto told the fox in his mind. You're welcome. Talking to you is certainly way nicer than having to endure Madara's presence. So what's on your mind, kid? Naruto sighed almost inaudibly. Nothing much. It's just that one of the Satans wants to turn me into a devil. One of my colleagues is about to launch an attack on the meeting between the three major factions, and knowing Itachi, he's probably recording all of this so he can troll me later. Nope, this is just another regular day in the life of Uzumaki Naruto. Well, you've always been the kind of person that attracts trouble. Kurama stated amusedly. Naruto grinned to himself. No, Kurama, I'm one of those people who actively seek out trouble. Naruto felt a liberation of heavy shackles as he listened to the sound of bell. He took his time to get up from his chair, savoring every single second of it. He stretched his arms, making his bones snap. He then proceeded to slowly walk out of the classroom, basking in the hatred he could feel radiating from the teacher. Naruto smirked as he watched every student leave the classroom. He hadn't done shit during class. And it felt good. Looks like someone's happy that class is over. Naruto turned his head to see Akeno standing next to him, her arm already linked with his. Naruto blinked odd, he was sure that Akeno had already left class before him and she wasn't standing here yet when he had stepped out of the door. The fact that Akeno could track him down faster than he could say Kamui made Naruto feel slightly uncomfortable. Yeah, I would have died if I had to spend a minute longer in that wretched classroom. Naruto muttered. Akeno laughed as she leaned her head against Naruto slightly. The two continued to walk through the hallways, earning various looks from the students. Is that Akeno Onasama with Naruto-senpai? I thought he was dating Rias Onasama. Is he cheating? They're so cute together. Naruto clenched his fist tightly, restraining the urge to use his Susanoo to crush everyone. If they wanted to talk about him behind his back, they could at least try to keep quiet. He suddenly felt Akeno's grip on his arm tighten. He was greeted by Akeno's trademark smile. Please ignore them, Naruto-kun. They can keep filling their heads with their own little fantasies. You don't have to worry. Akeno said reassuringly. She then pulled Naruto down slightly, her face coming dangerously close to his. The relation between us will be our little secret, after all. Akeno whispered in Naruto's ear. The two were interrupted by the shouts of the other students, yelling something about someone cosplaying as some kind of magical girl in the gymnasium. Naruto looked incredibly confused while Akeno just giggled. So she's here as well. Poor Sona is going to have a very tough day, Akeno said to herself. Naruto's confusion hadn't cleared up yet though. Who's here as well? And what does Sona have to do with any of this? Naruto asked. Akeno just kept giggling as she dragged him with her towards the gymnasium. By the time they arrived there, the gymnasium was already filled with people. In the center of all the attention was a raven-haired girl dressed in some kind of weird outfit, striking poses and skidding around. Naruto and Akeno quickly spotted Rias and Issei and walked over towards them. "So Butchu, has Leviathan-sama decided to pay us a visit?" Akeno asked Rias. Rias frowned slightly at how Akeno was clinging to Naruto, but nodded nonetheless. "Brother told me that she also will be representing the devils during the three-faction meeting," Rias explained. Suddenly, the magical girl appeared right in front of Rias, slightly startling the Redeed. The girl twirled around and Naruto could almost see the sparkles coming off her body. "Rias-chan," the girl exclaimed. "You've grown a lot since the last time I saw you. And you've certainly grown in more than one way," she muttered as an afterthought as she used her staff to poke Rias' balls, much to Rias' embarrassment. "It's nice to see you too, Serafall-sama." Rias greeted the Satan, trying to conceal the annoyance in her voice. "I assume you're looking for Sona." "I couldn't miss out on seeing my little Sona-chan again. I would have stayed right in the underworld if she wouldn't have been there," Serafall said in a defiant tone. "Then again, Sirzechs-chan threatened to cancel my show if I didn't come with him." Naruto just stared at the Satan, a blank look on his face. What was wrong with all these faction leaders? First you have the lazy Azazel with his wine addiction, then there's Sirzechs who's a total siskin, and now Naruto came to the discovery that Serafall has some kind of magical girl obsession with a loli-like behavior. Naruto was pulled out of his thoughts when Serafall suddenly started to actively pinch and touch his cheeks. "You look cute," Serafall stated. "Those marks on your cheek make you look like a fox." Serafall then gasped as a brilliant idea came to her mind. "Maybe you can be my companion. My foxy fox. Every magical girl needs a companion, and I don't have one yet," Serafall whined. "I'll consider your offer, Sparkles," Naruto said jokingly. Serafall released his cheeks and crossed her arms while pouting childishly. "If you're going to call me by a nickname, call me by my real nickname, Satan Girl," Serafall exclaimed as she struck another pose. Naruto just laughed in response. "I think Sparkles is just right." Serafall was about to throw a tantrum, but her eyes were locked on Sona, who had just entered the gymnasium. Serafall rushed over towards her sister with speeds that would put Naruto's father to shame. Once she was in reach, Serafall started smothering Sona. "Your leaders are certainly funny people," Naruto remarked. Rias sighed and shook her head. "Let's just go home already." Naruto and Rias were both suffering now. Apparently Itachi had thought it was a good idea to invite Sirzechs and Rias' father, Zenovia, to the apartment so they could watch the recordings they made during their time in school. While Naruto was certainly enjoying Rias' recordings, his suffering began when Itachi decided to put on the recordings he made of his class. "Didn't you feel that well during class, Naruto-kun?" Sirzechs asked jokingly. "It looked like you were having a heart attack when you almost fell on your desk." Zenovia laughed while Itachi smirked in amusement. Naruto was about to make a snide comeback, but Rias grabbed his arm and pulled him towards the bedroom. Once they entered the bedroom, Rias shut the door firmly and sat down on the bed. "What the hell, Rias-chan? I was about to roast that son of a never mind." Naruto frowned when he saw that Rias looked a bit down. She wasn't someone who always looked bubbly and happy, but something had to be up if she looked like this. "Naruto-kun, are you happy with me as your girlfriend?" Rias asked quietly. Naruto sighed and sat down next to her and wrapped an arm around her. "Why wouldn't I be happy? Because if I wouldn't be happy with you we would have broken up by now, right?" Naruto told Rias with a smile. This time it was Rias' turn to sigh. "I feel inferior, Naruto-kun. I've seen the other girls taking interest in you. I'm scared that I won't stand a chance against them," Rias admitted. "Look, if you are inferior to any of those girls, why are you my girlfriend? We didn't start dating just for shits and giggles. We share feelings for each other, and while it may not be pure love yet." "That's what I'm worried about," Rias shouted. "What if you fall in love with someone else? Remember that time when I found out that your parents were dead? I felt so bad because I didn't know a thing about you. And now time has passed and I feel like we still haven't progressed a bit." "Then why don't we get to know each other?" Naruto suggested. "We haven't been on any dates yet. For what I know about relationships, those are a requirement." Rias smiled happily. She felt better now that she knew that Naruto was also interested in only improving their relationship. Rias gently cupped Naruto's face in her hands and looked at him with a loving gaze. "I'd love to go on a date with you," Rias said softly. "I don't care about those other girls anymore. I'll make sure that you love me," Rias stated in determination. She then pressed her lips against Naruto's. Naruto had gotten used to these kind of things and wasn't surprised anymore, so instead he immediately deepened the kiss. The two would have continued like this for a very long time if their attention had not been taken by someone wolf whistling. Naruto and Rias quickly separated and saw that Itachi and Sirzechs had entered the room. "I hate to interrupt your intimate moments," Sirzechs started but was cut off by a pillow that was thrown by a flustered Rias. "That wasn't very nice, Ria-tan." Rias huffed. "You should learn to knock." Anyways, back to the subject, Sirzechs muttered as he threw the pillow back on the bed. Riatan, I've seen you and your peerage grow stronger. While there is still room for massive improvement for all of you, I think you're ready for it. Sirzechs told his sister with a grin. Ready for what, brother? Rias asked in confusion. Oh well, I thought it's about time that you unsealed a certain bishop of yours, Sirzechs answered casually as he checked out his nails. Ria's eyes widened. You really think I'm ready for it? Sirzechs grinned once again. Of course. Did you honestly think I'd tell you all of this only to say that you're not ready for it? Tomorrow, you'll be getting little Gasper Kun out of there. Rias brightened up and nodded. Sirzechs smiled at Ria's enthusiasm. Good. If you need us, we'll be back in the living room. Sirzechs said with a teasing look, much to Ria's and Naruto's confusion. Itachi decided to add his own 2 cents in this conversation. We're currently watching Naruto slam his head on his desk over and over again. So if you're getting anything on over here, don't be too loud or you'll be ruining our fun. The pillow that Naruto threw missed horribly. Night had fallen, and a disguised Naruto had made his way over towards the old building Kokabiel had used as a hideout before. Rainer and Fried were both with him, since the main reason for this meeting was the assignment of a mission to the fallen angel and rogue exorcist. Inside the building, Madara was sitting on his improvised throne. Fried and Rainer were both standing in front of him, as ready as 2 soldiers who were about to depart for the battlefield. Fried seemed to have trouble keeping this serious look up, since his eyes and lips were twitching. Deciding to not keep the two waiting any longer, Madara started unveiling his plan. As you may know, Madara started. I've already established a basic form of interaction with the 3 major factions. For our goal to be achieved, however, we need to target more factions. That's where you two come into play. Madara said as he pointed at Rainer and Fried. What is it that we need to do, Madara-sama? Rainer asked as she bowed her head. I've decided that the first faction we'll make our move on is the Yaokai faction. You two will be heading to Kyoto and she'll serve as my eyes. Madara explained. Fried looked confused, however. But boss, you aren't blind. Fried said in confusion. Rainer rolled her eyes in annoyance. He means that we will be his spies, idiot. Rainer grumbled. Fried glared at Rainer but decided to keep his mouth shut. Apparently Rainer had worked her way up and had become boss's favorite servant. Fried certainly didn't like that. Maybe if I work really hard during this mission, I can become boss' new favorite. Fried thought to himself. Once I'm done with the 3-faction meeting business, I will join you. But until that time comes, you shall report to me using these. Madara said as he pulled 2 phones out of his cloak. He threw the phones towards Fried and Rainer, and they both caught one respectively. Holy shit. This is that thing you use to crash candies with. Fried exclaimed as he looked at the phone like it was some magical item. There are a few rules you will have to obey while you're in Kyoto. First of all, don't pick fights. Especially you, Fried. Madara said sternly. Fried just grumbled something and crossed his arms. We can't attract any unwanted attention. You're permitted to fight only when attacked, understood? Rainer and Fried both nodded, Fried albeit a bit reluctantly. Good. You'll also have to report to me at least once a day. One of you will call me using the phones I've just given. You'll tell me about your current situation and give any valuable information you stumble upon. Any more questions? Fried raised his hand politely and Madara nodded for him to speak. Fried cleared his throat before he voiced his question. Will there be the opportunity to kill someone? Rainer pinched the bridge of her nose. Only Fried would ask these kind of questions. Madara sighed and leaned back in his throne. I am not quite sure about that, but let's say that the chances are high. Madara answered. Fried grinned maniacally just because there already was a chance. Madara stood up from his throne and proceeded to eject something out of his eye. Fried's eyes widened when Madara handed over the fused Excalibur to him. I figured this could be of use for you. Madara explained. Fried kept grinning as he gently stroked the blade, almost as if he was petting a cat. I also have something for you. Madara said as he turned towards Rainer. Her eyes widened as well when Madara gave her the twilight healing. But this is, Rainer muttered. You worked for this, Madara-sama. I can't accept this. Well, you're the one that worked for it actually. I just took it from you in the end. I can always ask Azazel to make another copy if there's need for that, so there is no need to fret. Since Naruto was slowly but surely regaining Kurama's chakra, he wouldn't really need the twilight healing to compensate for his healing factor. He actually felt a bit bad now since Asia had basically died for nothing, but the girl lived a happy life as a devil now, so there was no reason to linger on that. Madara started to activate his Kamui, indicating that he was about to leave. Fried looked a bit sad, while Rainer was still a bit confused about the whole twilight healing issue. Madara was actually in contact with her former leader. That was certainly quite the revelation. I put my faith in you too. Madara said as he was slowly getting sucked into the vortex. Do not disappoint me. Madara disappeared, leaving Fried and Rainer to their thoughts. The next day had arrived, and Naruto once again found himself in the old school building of the Occult Research Club. The meeting was still a day away, and Rias had decided to use this moment to unseal her other bishop. Because Naruto was such a nice guy, he decided to help out with Ria's new piece this time. "I didn't know that but you had another piece," Issei mentioned. Asia, who was standing next to him, nodded. "I hope it'll be nice with another bishop around," Asia said softly. Rias made her way towards the door and put a hand on it, making some kind of seal appear on it. "I am opening the door," Rias exclaimed, earning a small scream of protest from inside the room. The seal on the door disappeared, making it open. Once he walked inside, Naruto immediately noticed the rather peculiar coffin in the room. Akeno walked over towards the coffin and started opening it, earning more screams of protest. "No, no. I don't want to go outside." A squeaky voice came from the coffin. Akeno finally pulled the lid of the coffin, revealing a small, frail-looking girl. Naruto's eyes widened. This wasn't a girl, that was for sure. Did they honestly think they could fool him? He had seen Haku, and no one looked more like a girl than Haku did. The dude wore lipstick for God's sake. "It's a trap," Naruto shouted as he pointed his finger at the little boy. Rias rolled her eyes and smacked Naruto's arm lightly. She then also made her way over to the boy and embraced him. "This is Gasper Vali." Rias introduced the boy. "He was a Damphor, a human-vampire hybrid, before I reincarnated him as my bishop. Now why don't you come with us, Gasper?" Rias asked softly as she was about to pull Gasper out of the coffin, but he resisted. "No, no, no," Gasper shouted as tears started to well up in his eyes. "It's scary outside. I want to stay here." "Alright kid, you're coming with us whether you like it or not," Issei said as he marched over towards the coffin to help Rias out. Once Issei touched Gasper, he suddenly disappeared and was now sitting on the other side of the room, hugging himself. "What was that?" Issei muttered. Gasper was faster than Yuuto, he didn't even see him move. Rias sighed as she started to explain. "That's the power of Gasper's sacred gear, Forbidden Baylor View. This sacred gear allows the user to stop time. Because Gasper couldn't and probably still can't control it properly, I was forced to seal him inside here," Rias explained. Naruto's eyebrow rose up. This sacred gear almost sounded like a taijutsu. This could get really interesting. "Alright everyone. Akeno, Yuuto and I have to prepare some things for the upcoming summit. Good luck with the training," Rias told the rest of the peerage and Naruto with a smile. Once the three left the room, Naruto sighed as he pinched the bridge of his nose. "Okay, so how are we going to train a cross-dressing boy who has an extremely dangerous sacred gear that he can barely control?" Naruto muttered to himself. Zenovia smirked as she already held Durandal in her hands. "We simply have to get him out of this room first, Naruto-san. Then we can immediately begin his training." Zenovia smirked as she leapt towards Gasper. Gasper let out a small squeal of surprise as he quickly left his spot, avoiding Zenovia's deadly blade. Zenovia immediately started chasing Gasper. Naruto sighed as he saw the two leave the room, Kaneko also following them. How troublesome. Naruto started to slowly walk out of the room, his hands in his pockets. He needed to stop Zenovia and Kaneko before they could do something to seriously harm the poor boy. But there was no need to rush things, this little chase could serve as a good warm-up for Gasper. As they were walking through the hallway, Asia and Issei were both sending some curious looks towards Naruto, who was just staring ahead blankly. Even though nothing had happened, the tension around Naruto seemed to be high, and that irked the devils extremely. I think that Gasper-kun's power can be extremely helpful for us in the future," Asia said with a small smile, hoping to start a conversation. "Yeah, it's totally badass," Issei replied with a grin. "It's not an everyday thing you get to see someone who can stop time, it probably must be one of the strongest abilities out there." Naruto suppressed the urge to snort. He didn't want to sound like a banana or anything, but stopping time was nothing compared to the things he had seen. Madara had pulled 2 fucking meteorites from space. With his limited knowledge on sacred gears, he wasn't even sure if there was any sacred gear around that could even compare to the powers of the Rinnegan. What do you think, Naruto-senpai?" Asia asked kindly. "I agree that it can be useful, but only if the boy is being trained right. If we let Zenovia have her way with him, we will be preparing his funeral soon enough," Naruto answered, annoyance evident in his voice. "I don't think you give Zenovia credit," Issei said with a wave of his hand. "I'm sure she can handle Gasper. The problem here is not the fact whether she can handle him or not, Haidu. The boy hasn't been out of that room for ages, and Zenovia is chasing him with a fucking holy sword, which is extremely dangerous for devils, in case you have forgotten. Naruto groaned as they left the old building and came to the side of Gasper now being chased by both Zenovia and Kaneko. Zenovia was still using Durandal, and Kaneko was holding some garlic in her hand. Naruto quickly activated his Sharingan and manifested the arm of his Susanoo, using it to pull Gasper away from the deadly duo. "Naruto-san." Zenovia whined. "We were doing just fine. Flashy weapons and sacred gears are nice and all, but they're completely worthless in a fight if you can't use them properly," Naruto said as he firmly held onto Gasper, using one hand to cover his eyes. "Since we can basically say that Gasper's has zero battle experience, we're going to start off with that." Issei looked at the blonde with narrowed eyes. "And why are you the one who's going to decide that?" Naruto grinned, but it was no ordinary grin. It was almost bloodthirsty. "Because I can beat everyone here into a bloody pulp, that's why." Issei didn't say another word as Naruto stretched his arms, preparing for what was to come. "I haven't seen the fight skills of all you guys in depth, so let's have a spar to kick things off. Now do you want to have a battle royale or a team fight?" Naruto asked. These poor devils were going to suffer either way, so he could at least let them decide that. "I want to fight in teams, if that's okay," Gasper said weakly, still being held by Naruto. He didn't want to fight, but he realized he didn't really have a choice in the matter. "I would also prefer fighting in teams," Zenovia said. Naruto looked at the others with a questioning gaze, waiting for their response. Kaneko and Asia nodded, signaling that they also wanted to have a team battle. Issei was rapidly shaking his head however. "No way. Any team with you on their side is going to win anyway. Those damned eyes you have give you a really unfair advantage," Issei said as he pointed his finger at Naruto. Naruto just smirked in response. "See? You're actually admitting that I'm stronger," Naruto said smugly. "In that case, I won't use my Sharingan in this battle. Or are you still scared?" Naruto taunted. Issei widened his eyes. Without those fancy eyes, Naruto would be a pushover, or so Issei thought. The boy grinned as if he had already claimed victory, unaware of the other tricks Naruto had up his sleeve. "You're getting really full of yourself," Issei said, his grin still on his face. "So what are the teams?" Naruto started stroking his chin, assuming a thoughtful pose. "I think I have an idea. Asia and Gasper will be on my team, while you, Kaneko and Zenovia will be the other team. Does that sound okay to you?" Issei's grin just got wider. Asia wasn't really the brawler type, she played more of a supportive role. And Gasper hadn't fought for a while now, so Naruto was the only real threat. But he was outnumbered and couldn't use his main power. This was going to be easy. Naruto smirked, almost looking like he could read Issei's thoughts. Everything was just going according to plan. He was going to employ the Madara tactic on the enemy team, giving them false hope and then taking it away. It was not like he held anything against Issei or anything, well, maybe just a little. Rias had been acting like a pain in the after Naruto refused to train the boy. But those things were all in the past now. If he was going to train Rias' peerage, he wanted to do it right. "I'm happy that everyone agrees," Naruto said with a smile that was a bit too sweet. "I'm going to give us all 10 minutes to prepare for the spar. Try to come up with some kind of strategy or just kill the time by sitting on your ass." Naruto grabbed Asia by her arm and pulled her towards him. He then made some distance between the enemy team and his own, setting up a circle formation. All right, kids. Naruto started as he looked at Gasper and Asia. "I know what you're thinking. The enemies have a holy sword, a long Inus tier sacred gear and a lowly with super strength. But that doesn't matter. Because we have one thing they don't have," Naruto said mysteriously. Asia and Gasper both sent questioning gazes towards the former shinobi. "The power of friendship." An awkward silence dawned over the team. "Friendship is really nice, but I don't see how that's going to help us against the other team," Asia said softly. "That's because it won't, I was just bullshitting you guys," Naruto said, making the Asia and Gasper sweat drop. "What we do have however are two extremely powerful sacred gears and a bodice," Naruto told them with a smile. But senpai. I can't use mine properly," Gasper said meekly. Naruto grinned and patted the boy's head. "You were half vampire before you became a devil, right?" Naruto asked, making Gasper nod. "Then I'm sure you still have some other abilities. Care to tell us something about it?" "Well, I can use bats, but I don't know if that will be helpful." "That will be extremely helpful," Naruto reassured the boy. "Alright, so this is the plan. Gasper is going to use his bats as a tool to slow down everyone. Asia, I know you can fire some kind of magic projectile, but it's not really fast. That's where Gasper's bats come into play. You'll be able to hit Haidu and Kaneko-chan for sure," Naruto explained. "But what about Zenovia? And Gasper's bats can't stall them forever," Asia said in a worried tone. "Don't worry about Zenovia, I'll handle her. Haidu will probably hold back, he still thinks you two are way too damn cute to hurt. I can multitask, so there's nothing to worry about," Naruto reassured the bishop with a grin. He then turned towards the other team and cupped his hands in front of his mouth. "Alright everyone," Naruto shouted. "The bloodbath is about to begin. An eerie silence dawned over the battlefield. The two teams were staring each other down. Zenovia, Issei and Kaneko each had resolve in their eyes. They were completely confident in their abilities and were sure that they would win this fight. On Naruto's side, both Asia and Gasper were looking nervous. Naruto, however, didn't seem unnerved at all. He just kept looking Zenovia straight into her eyes and she stared right back. Enough. Zenovia suddenly shouted, having enough of all this waiting. She charged towards Naruto. Naruto narrowed his eyes and beckoned for Asia and Gasper to jump back. Zenovia swung Durandal straight towards Naruto's torso. Everyone's eyes widened in horror as they saw Naruto getting bisected. No. I killed the father of my future children. The horror on Zenovia's face was soon replaced by confusion as Naruto's bisected body was replaced by a cut log. She didn't have any time to think as she was hit in the head by someone's foot. She skidded over the ground for a small distance but soon used Durandal to stop herself. Zenovia glared at Naruto, who was now standing on the spot where she once stood. I'm sorry. Naruto apologized sincerely as he put a hand on his heart. It is not in my nature to hurt women. Gasper, do it. Gasper quickly nodded at Naruto's command and summoned a bunch of bats. The bats flew towards Issei and Kaneko, who were just about to help Zenovia out. The bats started to circle around them and attack them. Naruto smirked and gave Gasper a thumbs up, making the boy blush slightly. Asia, you know what to do. Naruto said before he charged at Zenovia. Asia bit her lip slightly as she started to fire projectiles at Issei and Kaneko. Damn it, Asia. Issei shouted as he tried to dodge Asia's magic but couldn't get far thanks to Gasper's bats. Can you at least try to aim a little bit? No. Not the banana. Don't aim for the banana. While Kaneko and Issei were struggling against Asia and Gasper, Zenovia wasn't doing well against Naruto. She was now just wildly hacking and slashing at him while he just kept gracefully dodging and jumping over her attacks. Your stance is sloppy. Naruto taunted as he kicked Zenovia's shin. Zenovia gritted her teeth and aimed at Naruto's head with an upward slash. Naruto jumped back and simultaneously went through a series of hand seals. High release. Phoenix Age fire technique. Naruto shot a volley of small fireballs out of his mouth. Zenovia zigzagged towards Naruto, effectively dodging the fireballs. Naruto cursed slightly when he looked towards Asia's and Gasper's direction. Issei and Kaneko had managed to liberate themselves from the bat and were now both making their way over towards Naruto's teammates. He had to come up with something and quick. His planning was interrupted by a rather angry Zenovia. Naruto quickly leaned backwards and the blade just missed his face. I bet Zabuza would have liked this thing, Naruto muttered to himself. You can't run away forever. Zenovia shouted as she kept swinging her Durandal around. I'm sorry, did you say something? It's kinda hard to hear you talking while I'm kicking your ass. Naruto said teasingly as he ducked under one of Zenovia's slashes and swept her legs. Once Zenovia was on the ground, Naruto quickly turned towards Asia and Gasper. Kaneko was already chasing the boy around while Issei was still limping towards Asia. Naruto sighed as he slowly approached Asia. What did you do to him? Naruto asked Asia. Asia blushed and started fidgeting with her hands. I hit him, Asia said quietly. Naruto threw a glance at Issei, who was still limping over towards them. That's good. You fucked him up quite hard, where the hell did you hit him? Asia kept on spluttering something, but no clear answer came out of her mouth. Naruto frowned slightly when he saw that Issei was keeping his legs closer to each other than he normally would. Damn it, Asia, Naruto grumbled. You don't hit a guy with a banana. You just don't do it. Asia's blush got even darker and she looked down on the ground. Naruto sighed once again and created a clone. Deal with Kaneko-chan. Naruto ordered his clone. The clone nodded and dashed over towards Kaneko and Gasper. The real Naruto redirected his attention towards Issei. Can you still go, Haidu? We don't want your balls to fall off by the end of this. Even though it wouldn't make much difference. Issei winced slightly before regaining his composure. I can go on now, prepare to get your kicked. Boost. Naruto quickly found himself dodging all sorts of wild attacks thrown by Issei. He was completely sure that the packed some kind of punch thanks to his sacred gear, but his attacks were rather slow, predictable, and lacked any kind of flow. It actually reminded Naruto slightly of how he used to fight back when he was a genin. Wait a second. He was never actually promoted. After saving the village from Nagato, helping everyone out in the war, doing all kinds of helpful things, he was still a genin. Those ungrateful bastards. Naruto was ripped out of his thoughts when a grin appeared on Issei's face. The blonde narrowed his eyes. Suddenly cold steel was pressed against Naruto's throat. I see. Naruto concluded. At least you got the teamwork principle down. Issei kept on grinning and a victorious smirk appeared on Zenovia's face. They soon realized that their victory was not to last when Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke. Issei felt someone hit his spine with their elbow. A loud snap was heard and Issei fell to the ground. Damn, this is getting boring, Naruto thought to himself. I'm not really in the mood for more jumping around with Zenovia. I'll have to finish her off quickly. Zenovia tried to decapitate Naruto, but he ducked under her blade once again. Zenovia's senses immediately told her to defend, and she quickly used her sword to block Naruto's incoming punch. Naruto just kept on punching Durandal, much to Zenovia's confusion. What she didn't realize, however, that Naruto was sending more chakra into his fist with each consecutive hit. Zenovia gritted her teeth, realizing that Naruto was starting to push her back. She opted for a slash at Naruto's torso, but her attack was too slow, and Naruto punched her straight into her stomach, knocking her onto the ground. He then proceeded to grab Durandal and threw it away, leaving Zenovia completely disarmed. Since I can't use my Sharingan, let's see who's stronger without using any of our special tools. Naruto said with a smirk. Zenovia glared at Naruto as she slowly stood up from the ground. She let out a war cry before throwing a vicious right hook at Naruto's face, who dodged it by sidestepping. This continued for a while, with Zenovia throwing wild punches and Naruto calmly dodging them. Naruto ducked under one of Zenovia's swing and kicked her against her chin, stunning her. Naruto quickly grabbed Zenovia by her throat and applied just enough pressure to provide some discomfort, but not enough to really choke her. Zenovia. Naruto started. Zenovia glared at Naruto. She tried to wiggle herself out of his grip, but it was to no avail. Naruto chuckled at Zenovia's attempt to escape. Come on girl, there's no need to be so upset. It was just a spar, it's not like I'm going to kill you or anything. Naruto turned his head to look what kind of progress his teammates and clone had made. He smirked slightly when he saw that his clone had successfully beaten Kaneko. Well, not really beaten. The clone had simply tackled her down and had started patting her head. The girl wasn't able to resist. Asia and Gasper were both kneeling next to Issei, who was still lying on the ground in pain. Looks like we win. Naruto said smugly before releasing Zenovia. Zenovia coughed a bit and held her throat. She looked at Naruto with newfound respect and awe in her eyes as she followed him towards Kaneko, Gasper, Issei and Asia. He had been able to defeat her even without one of his major abilities. Zenovia found it quite strange that someone who had enough strength to defeat someone of Kokabiel's caliber to pop out of nowhere. And then there was Itachi, who was able to overwhelm Marina and herself and had escaped the church's clutches with ease. Who were they exactly? Hey guys, what's going on over here? A sudden voice rang out. Naruto's eyebrow rose up when he looked at the boy approaching them. Naruto recognized him, he had been there when he had fought Itachi. Saji greeted the group with a wave and a smile. His attention soon went towards Issei, however, who was still lying on the ground. He knelt down to Issei's level as a smug smirk appeared on his face. What's wrong, Haidu? Did you get your kicked again? I wonder if you ever get tired of having your beat all the time. Saji said in a teasing voice. Issei growled. Shut the fuck up, Saji, I still have enough strength to beat you into a bloody pulp if I have to. Issei snarled. Saji would have retorted if he had not seen Gasper. Well, hello, Saji greeted Gasper in a seductive tone. Gasper seemingly didn't want to have anything to do with Saji and hid behind Naruto, clutching the blonde shirt tightly. Naruto rolled his eyes and sighed. Alright, smooth operator, stop right there. Naruto said as he held his hand in front of him, gesturing for Saji to not come any closer. I don't think Gasper swings that way, and unless you like to take in the bottom, I suggest that you stop being a flirt. Naruto warned. Issei laughed from his place on the ground, while Saji frowned. What are you even talking about? Saji asked in confusion. Naruto didn't say anything and just let Saji figure it out himself. A few seconds passed and Saji's eyes widened in horror. It's a boy. Took you long enough. Naruto muttered. Now don't interrupt me and go be some kind of background decoration or something. Naruto waved Saji off before turning towards the group. Alright, let me explain why you got your asses handed to you by me and my squad. First of all, you. Naruto once again interrupted, this time by the sound of someone clapping. Naruto turned around and was about to tear Saji to shreds, but realized it wasn't Saji who was clapping. Azazel. Azazel smirked as he approached the group. By now, everyone was huddled around Naruto. Issei was still on the ground but glared at Azazel nonetheless. Since Issei wasn't available, Asia was clutching to Naruto's left arm. Gasper was hiding behind Naruto, and Zenovia and Kaneko were both ready to jump at Azazel at any time. Saji looked slightly confused but was wary at the same time. The boosted gear, Twilight Healing, Absorption Line and the Forbidden Baler View. So many cool sacred gears in one place. Azazel mused to himself. What do you want, Azazel? Issei shouted. After Azazel had revealed his true identity to him during one of the contracts, his dislike for the fallen angel had grown immensely. The fact that he also was involved with Madara in some kind of way didn't make things better. Azazel chuckled. Don't worry kid, I'm not here to steal your sacred gears. Thought it seems you have a bit of problem with controlling one of them, Azazel said as he directed his gaze towards Gasper. Do you have any way to improve his control over it? Naruto asked. The devils looked at him like he was insane. Here was Naruto, asking their sworn enemy casually for help. Naruto-senpai, no. We can't trust him, he's a fallen angel. We don't know what he wants. Zenovia tried to reason. Naruto just waved her off. Come on, don't be ridiculous. Just because you met one bad fallen angel once doesn't mean they're all the same. Naruto turned towards Azazel. He didn't know if Azazel had seen him use any jutsu. He was sure that he could trust the man, but the amount of people that knew about his secret identity were getting past his comfort zone. For all he knew, Ophis could be telling the whole Chaos Brigade about him. Azazel smiled lightly at the boy. He was a bit confused at first, the blonde was no devil, yet he was still helping them out. He was no magician, had no sacred gear, and the only thing Azazel had seen was a bit of fire, and he wasn't even sure if the boy had created that. This was interesting for Azazel to say the least. Well, he is a vampire after all, Azazel started. Drinking the blood of someone strong would certainly help him out, don't you think? Naruto's eyes widened. Of course, why didn't he think about that earlier? Vampires were famous for the whole blood drinking thing. Naruto shivered slightly at the thought of Gasper sucking blood out of his neck, but quickly pushed it aside. And if his powers get out of control, Azazel started as he turned toward Saji. You can always use your sacred gear to drain him of his powers. Saji's eyes widened. My sacred gear can do that? He asked incredulously. Azazel chuckled at the boy's surprised expression. Why, yes. It isn't called the absorption line for nothing. It holds the power of one of the 5 great dragon kings, Vritra. You can use the line not only to restrain your victims, but to drain their power as well. But enough of that, I'll let you guys figure the rest out by yourselves. Azazel said as he turned around and started to walk away. Wait. Issei shouted. Azazel stopped walking and looked back over his shoulder. Why did you hide your true identity from me when we first met? Issei asked. Why you ask? Because that's what I like to do. Azazel said before smiling. He then resumed walking again, not looking back this time. Naruto-san, how do you know Azazel? Zenovia asked the blonde. I did enough research. Naruto answered simply. Zenovia frowned slightly but nodded. A faint blush crept upon her face as she looked at Naruto with an expectant gaze. Have you already considered making children with me? No. Zenovia looked down rather dejectedly. Suddenly Naruto's phone rang. He excused himself and made some distance from himself and the group before picking up the call. Hello? Madara-sama, it's me. Rainer's voice came from the other side of the line. I called you to report. Good. So how are things going back in Kyoto? Naruto asked. We arrived a few hours ago and I'm currently in the hotel we're staying at. Rainer answered. Since Fried was getting a bit too obsessed with playing Candy Crush, I decided to send him out scouting. So far. Naruto sighed. Alright, that's good. If Fried finds out something, tell me immediately. Naruto was actually getting quite tired of playing with the devils constantly. He needed a little vacation, and Kyoto would be perfect for that. Maybe this little escapade of his to Kyoto would actually be worth it. I'm back, bitch. Naruto almost dropped the phone when he heard Rainer's almost inhuman growling. Oh wait, she wasn't human. But her imminent dislike for Fried was certainly a surprise. With all the psychotic tendencies and killing aside, Fried was actually a pretty nice guy. He actually reminded Naruto of one of those Akatsuki members. What was his name again? Haiden. Get away from me, Fried, I'm reporting to Madara-sama. Rainer shouted. Boss is on the phone. Fried's voice almost exploded with excitement. Give me. Naruto blinked as he listened to destructive sounds of Rainer and Fried fighting over the phone. Maybe it wasn't such a good choice to pair those two together on a rather important mission. In the end, the former shinobi decided to hang up. Yeah, Kyoto was definitely not worth it. Naruto cupped his hands in front of his mouth. Guys. I have to go. I'm sure you guys can train Gasper without me. See you guys later. Naruto shouted before activating his Sharingan and using Kamui to disappear. Issei raised his head and looked at Naruto's vortex with horror evident on his face. Wait, Naruto-senpai. Can you at least fix up my spine again? Because you called me a genius. Naruto remained silent as he felt Niji's body go limp in his arms. His corpse slid out of his grip, falling onto the ground. No one said a word among the shinobi, the only sound heard on the battlefield was that of the Juubi. On top of the Juubi's head, Madara and Obito were watching the scene unfold before them. Obito was looking on rather gravely, while Madara had a small smile on his face. I thought you said you'd never let your comrades die. Look around you and say those words again. Obito shouted from the head of the beast. Naruto just blankly stared at the ground in front of him, his eyes wide and his hands shaking. I told you to say them again. No answer. This will continue like this, why can't you just understand that nothing will change? Obito asked. What is there for you in this cruel reality? Your parents are dead, and so is your master, Jiraiya. In the end, everyone who acknowledged you will be gone. Instead of continuing with his little monologue, Obito raised his hands. The Juubi raised its tails and fired another wave of wooden spikes. The spikes rained down on the defenseless shinobi, killing one after another. Soon the spikes were aimed at Naruto, and this time there was no one who would protect him. Naruto's eyes shot open as he sat up straight in his bed. He gripped the sheets tightly and gritted his teeth, sweat trailing down his face. He never had a nightmare like this before, and it sure wasn't nice. Why can't I let go? Naruto felt a pair of slender arms wrap around his waist. He cast his eyes sideways to see Rias looking up at him with a worried gaze. Is everything alright, Naruto-kun? Rias asked. Naruto sighed and laid back down, Rias following him down as well. It's nothing, really. Just some bad dream, that's all, Naruto answered. Rias still seemed concerned though, and her boyfriend's answer didn't satisfy her at all. You shouldn't keep everything bottled up inside you, it's not good. Rias said with a frown. You should talk about it. Naruto laughed slightly, making Rias' frown deepen. You wouldn't understand. But I guess you're right, I have to let it out, some way, Naruto said before he sat up straight again, preparing to get out of bed. Naruto couldn't leave, however, since Rias was tightly holding on to his arm. Why can't you just talk to me? Rias was getting a bit frustrated with her boyfriend. You say that I won't be able to understand you, but I don't even know what's bothering you. Naruto smiled slightly and pecked Rias on her lips, shutting her up. That's because I don't want you to get involved with my problems. Now try to get some sleep, I'll be back in a moment. He answered simply before getting up and leaving the room. Naruto slowly entered the living room. It was pretty dark and the only light he had was that from the shining moon. Naruto saw that Itachi apparently wasn't asleep and didn't look like he was even going to sleep. The Uchiha was dressed in a hoodie with balls drawn on them, the word Oppai written underneath them. He also wore simple black sweatpants and a pair of flip-flops. Shortly, the ultimate attire for a shinobi on a budget. Hey man. Naruto greeted his surrogate brother. Itachi nodded and beckoned for him to come sit down. Naruto complied and sat down next to Itachi. Why aren't you sleeping? I'm afraid I might be an insomniac. I've been having trouble falling asleep lately. Did you two get in another fight again? Itachi asked, staring at the ceiling. Naruto grinned cheekily and scratched the back of his head. Not really. I guess you could call it more of a misunderstanding. Naruto said sheepishly. Itachi sighed. He started to rummage through the pockets of his pants and pulled out a lighter and a pack of cigarettes. Naruto's eyebrow rose up. You smoke? Naruto asked incredulously. Itachi shrugged. Occasionally. Itachi answered. It helps with the fire jutsu. He added jokingly. Naruto laughed a bit and shook his head. Anyways, I don't think you came here just for the pleasantries. Naruto shook his head. No, something's been bugging me for a while. You see, I had this really nasty nightmare just now, Naruto started. Itachi lighted a cigarette and took a long drag of it, his eyes fixed on Naruto. It was about the war. I just can't forget it. Everyone fought so hard to try and stop Madara, and now they're all gone. Naruto managed to get out through gritted teeth. I feel like their deaths are in vain, Itachi. Why didn't I die? Why did you come back? I don't understand it. Naruto exclaimed in a frustrated voice. Itachi blew some smoke out of his mouth. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about it though. There's no changing the fact that our world is gone now. We'll just have to make the best of it in this new world and move on, all those other things are in the past now. But I can't let go of the past. Naruto shouted. How can I forget Sasuke, Kakashi-sensei, Sakura-chan, Iro-sen, are you saying I should just throw my memories of them away like they're all some trash? I'm not saying you should forget them. Itachi said calmly. I'm just saying that you should move on. The people who live and die around you all influence you in some way or another, Naruto-kun. What happens in the past lays the foundation for what you will become in the future. Without the death of my family and my clan, I wouldn't be the man I am today. Those shinobi died so that others could live. In a way you could say that they died so you could live. By sulking over them you certainly make it like they died in vain. You'll have to show yourself that you're ready to honor their sacrifices and willing to move on by living your new life. Naruto remained silent and pondered over Itachi's words. Was he truly dishonoring the deaths of his friends acting like this? You're right. Naruto said with a smile. I can't change their deaths. The best I can do is create the peace we could never have back home here. Thanks, I needed that. Itachi smiled slightly as well. He was content with the fact that Naruto actually took his advice to the heart. Itachi would do anything in his power to prevent Naruto from diverting towards the dark path. He wouldn't fail him like he failed Sasuke. Niisa and Naruto said incredibly sweetly as he scooted over closer to Itachi. Itachi was about to grab another cigarette and cursed. The pack was empty. That's what you get for buying cheap Marlboro rip-offs. Itachi sighed and looked at Naruto with a tired expression on his face. What is it? Can I skip school tomorrow? No. Come on. Naruto whined. The only thing that's even remotely important tomorrow is the 3-faction meeting. Are you really going to put your little brother through another day of hellish classes just for that? Just think about all the fun things we could do at home. We can eat some ramen, watch TV, eat some more ramen, watch more TV. So basically what we do almost every day. Itachi concluded. That's exactly why you're going to school, foolish little brother. You don't do anything productive at home. You just stuff yourself with that cheap ramen you buy from the convenience store and watch some melodramatic teenage soaps. Itachi deadpanned. You'd be better off actually learning something at school. You should probably go back to bed before Rias starts throwing hissy fits. Come on man, I'm sure I can do something productive at home. Maybe I should get a job too. Naruto's face brightened up at his brilliant idea. Holy shit, if we're both going to work we're gonna be filthy rich in no time. Your education is a priority, you need some kind of backup plan. And there's no need for you to work, since I make enough money with my job. Itachi explained. Naruto's eyes narrowed, he had completely forgotten that Itachi actually had a job. You know, you never actually told me what kind of job you're working. Naruto said, his voice filled with suspicion. More money won't hurt a fly hurt, right? We need to pay the rent, electrical bills. These are tough times Itachi, we need the cash. Itachi sighed in annoyance. Naruto was really persistent. What kind of work I do is none of your concern. My income is sufficient enough to pay the bills. And in case you have forgotten, we haven't paid rent since you used a genjutsu on the landlord. Now go back to bed, you have school tomorrow. Naruto stood up from the couch rather dejectedly, grumbling something about stupid older brothers. Naruto was just about to enter his bedroom again, but was stopped by Itachi's voice. Oh and Naruto-kun. Itachi started. Naruto looked over his shoulder to meet Itachi's gaze. You can't hide the truth from Rias forever. Naruto nodded slowly, understanding what Itachi meant. He quickly opened the door of his bedroom and entered it. His eyes met those of Rias. She was sitting upright in bed and was hugging a pillow. Naruto quickly slid back into bed. Rias in response put the pillow back where it belonged and enveloped Naruto into hug. Naruto wrapped his arms around Rias' waist and buried his face in the crook of her neck. The two stayed like that for a while, just silently enjoying each other's warmth before falling asleep. Of course when Naruto fell asleep, all hell started to break loose inside his mind. Come on, you idiot. Just get over the fact that you're stuck in here no matter what. Instead of listening to Kurama, Madara promptly ignored him and continued with his dark plan. Kurama narrowed his eyes. Madara had drawn some kind of incredibly complex seal on the wall. Kurama had some sort of feeling about what Madara was about to do. The Uchiha was getting incredibly bored and was trying to find a way to get himself a body again. It wasn't working well for Madara. Shut your trap, fox. Madara snarled. The complexity of this seal shall not fail me. Your feeble mind wouldn't understand the true power this can hold. Kurama growled lowly. You better watch it. I've lived long enough to see all those tricks you shinobi have. Don't think you'll be able to impress me. Madara ignored the Bijuu once again, much to Kurama's frustration. Madara put a hand on the seal and it started to glow brightly, much to Kurama's and even Madara's own surprise. The seal started to rapidly spread over the walls and the ground. Kurama was rapidly looking around the mindscape, following the seal with his eyes. Madara was grinning in absolute glee, his plan was working. Yes, yes, yes. Madara shouted as he started jumping around. Madara's hopes crashed down harder than a drunk prostitute on a tricycle when the seal stopped glowing. Kurama howled with laughter, making Madara glare at him with all his hatred, which was quite a lot. See? I told you it wouldn't work. Kurama said when he calmed down from laughing. Don't worry, Uchiha. I've been sealed inside the kid for almost 20 years, I'm sure you'll get used to it too. You've been here for like what, a few months? Even though I would like this place more without your presence, there's simply no going around the fact that you're stuck here. Madara grumbled and sat back down on the ground. The fox was annoying, Naruto was annoying, everything was annoying. Why did this happen to him? Everything was going so nice and smooth back in his own world. The infinite Tsukiyomi had been cast, but then that dirty backstabbing Zetsu had to ruin everything. Madara's interest in the infinite Tsukiyomi was completely lost by now. He didn't have the Juubi anymore so he wouldn't be able to cast the Genjutsu even if he still wanted to. Madara came to the horrifying conclusion that the fox was right in a way. He'd probably be stuck with Naruto for a long time, maybe even until death, and it would be more profitable if he made the situation better for himself. Well, damn, Madara muttered to himself. I guess I'll just have to make the absolute best of it, Naruto? The urge to strangle Itachi did not leave Naruto. The next day had arrived, and school was the first thing on agenda. How he wished he could swap out school for some drinking time with Azazel or something, but unfortunately it was not be. Damn Itachi and his brotherly instincts. Naruto was sitting in his trademark spot against some tree. He loved the spot dearly, he always ate here. Of course Rias had offered him to have lunch with her club countless of times, but Naruto had rejected her. It was not that he despised spending time with Rias' peerage, it was just that during times like these he enjoyed Kurama's and Madara's company much more. From this day forth, however, another person would start keeping Naruto company. Naruto-kun. Naruto lazily turned his head to see Akeno approaching him. Inside his mind, Kurama muttered a fearful "oh no," while Madara gleefully gave an "oh yes." "Yo, Akeno-chan." Naruto greeted the girl with a grin. She sat down next to him, a bit too close for Naruto's liking. "Aren't you supposed to have lunch with the others back at the clubroom?" he asked. Akeno giggled softly in response. "No, I decided that I would grace you with my presence today. Here, I made you something." Akeno presented a neatly homemade bento. Naruto's eyes widened, it almost looked as good as a naked girl bathing in ramen. Almost. Because the ramen made it all them pretty. "Thanks, that's really nice." Naruto thanked Akeno with a smile. He was about to take the bento from Akeno's hands, but she swatted him away. "What the hell, woman?" Naruto shouted as he held his hand. "Why would you make this for me if you're not going to let me eat it?" "Because I'm going to feed you, silly." Akeno exclaimed happily. Naruto's eyebrow twitched slightly, and his cheeks got a slightly red tint to them. It was to be expected, Akeno couldn't even do the simplest things in a normal fashion when Naruto was somehow involved in it. "No, don't do it, Naruto." Kurama's voice echoed through Naruto's mind. "Her food is filled with poison, you can't trust her." "Don't listen to the fox, boy." Madara's voice butted in. "Of course you can trust her. You two share similar pasts. Just let her feed you." Naruto had to agree with Madara on this one. Kurama was just spewing bullshit with the whole poison thing. And since Akeno was incredibly persistent, it would only become more troublesome for him if he refused. "Alright then. You better get started because boy am I hungry," Naruto muttered. Akeno laughed and grabbed a pair of chopsticks. "Say ah," Akeno said sweetly. Naruto opened his mouth and Akeno gently placed a piece of fish inside his mouth. This went on like this for a while, with Akeno continuing to feed Naruto fish. That was until the chopsticks magically broke. "Arr." Akeno started as she looked at the broken chopsticks. "I guess we'll have to continue without chopsticks now." Naruto was about to grab a piece of fish himself, but Akeno beat him to it. She grabbed the fish and put it in her mouth. She then gently wrapped her arms around Naruto. Naruto opened his mouth to protest against the sudden physical contact, and Akeno seized her chance. She pressed her mouth against Naruto's and used her tongue to push the piece of fish inside his mouth. After that, she immediately separated from him. "How did you like that, Naruto-kun?" Akeno asked, her cheeks flushed. Naruto quickly started chewing on the fish so he wouldn't choke on it later because he certainly would thanks to the surprise Akeno's actions brought him. "That was tasty," Naruto said as he swallowed the piece of fish. "But why?" Akeno smiled sultry as she pushed Naruto down onto the grass and started straddling him. She leaned down so her and Naruto's face were almost touching. "You were there for me when no one else was," Akeno whispered as she stroked Naruto's cheek. "Ever since that night you've gotten a special place in my heart. Please, I want you to be mine." "Akeno-chan, we can't do this," Naruto protested weakly. To be honest, he liked Akeno a lot. With all the sadistic and masochistic tendencies aside, she seemed like pretty good girlfriend material to Naruto. He felt like he was a man with morals, however, and doing things like this with another girl while having a girlfriend didn't exactly feel like the right thing to do. "What's stopping you?" Akeno asked. "You can beat high-ranking fallen angels, but you can't give a woman some love." Naruto was about to retort with his classic "I have a girlfriend you know" argument, but Akeno quickly placed a finger on his lips to silence the boy. "I don't want to hear a word about Rias, this is between you and me. You know that polygamy is a common thing in our world, right?" Naruto narrowed his eyes. "Yeah, but you forget that I'm not a devil." "Akeno-chan, why can't you just accept this? I'm pretty sure there are many other guys who would absolutely love to give you some affection. We can always be friends, right?" Naruto felt a faint tug at his heart when he said the last part. Somewhere deep inside his heart, he didn't want Akeno to be with any other guys, or just be friends. Akeno looked at Naruto rather dejectedly. "No, why can't you just understand? These feelings in my heart are only for you, not for some other guy. Being just friends isn't enough for me. I don't need anyone else but you," Akeno stated defiantly. Naruto felt himself getting a bit flustered at Akeno's indirect love confession. It was still a huge change for him, suddenly becoming a ladies' man. Dealing with all the girls throwing themselves at him and wanting to bear his children only because he was strong was a bit too much for Naruto. Oh well, to hell with his own morals. "Alright, wait up for a second," Naruto said as he cupped Akeno's face in his hands, making her look straight into his eyes. "I guess we can try this. I, apparently, do hold some affection for you. Well, we may not love." Naruto's declaration was interrupted by Akeno hugging him tightly. "Oh Naruto-kun. I just knew you loved me. I'm already getting aroused at the thought of the two of us doing all kinds of naughty things," Akeno muttered in a sultry tone as she rubbed her body against Naruto's. "Don't get your hopes up too high," Naruto said teasingly. "But seriously, I don't know how Rias is going to react to this." "Oh, but she doesn't have to know about this," Akeno said slyly. Naruto's face scrunched up in confusion. "Akeno-chan, why can't you just make up your mind? First you're all like no one cares if you date another girl because devils are always trying to throw mass orgies and now you want to keep this a secret from Rias. You're not making any sense right now," Naruto informed the girl. Akeno just looked at Naruto longingly. "Why do you always have to be so nice, Naruto-kun?" Akeno asked. Naruto was getting more and more confused by the moment. So now it was suddenly bad to be nice. "You're always so considerate of others," Akeno continued. "It makes me want to punish you." Naruto laughed awkwardly. He felt like he was getting himself in some deep shit right now. Naruto heard the bell ringing and quickly stood up. He was saved by the bell this time. Akeno stood up as well and the two made their way towards their classes. After school had ended, Naruto, Itachi and Rias' peerage had all gathered in the clubroom so they could prepare for the summit. Since Gasper was still not able to control his power properly, Rias had decided to leave him behind so he wouldn't cause any trouble. Kaneko would also stay behind so she could watch over Gasper. "Alright you two, don't get yourself into any trouble," Rias told Kaneko and Gasper with a smile. The two nodded in response and everyone else left the room, leaving the two behind. On their way to the meeting, Naruto was casually talking to Itachi while Rias' peerage was conversing among themselves. "Itachi-san." Rias suddenly addressed the Uchiha. Itachi cast his eyes towards Rias' direction, indicating that he was listening to her. "I can understand why Naruto-kun is here, since he practically is the one that beat Kokabiel, and that's also going to be one of the issues addressed at the summit, but why are you here?" Itachi started looking forward again, averting his eyes from Rias. "It's rather simple. I go where Naruto goes. And besides, I was there when a few members of your peerage went out to hunt the pieces of Excalibur. I consider that enough for me to involve myself," Itachi replied in his trademark monotone voice. Rias nodded, she could see Itachi's reasoning. Naruto grinned happily and wrapped an arm around Itachi's shoulder. "Oh foolish older brother, I never knew you cared so much about me," Naruto exclaimed jokingly. The corners of Itachi's lips faintly tugged upward for a second before his emotionless look made its way to his face. Soon the group appeared in front of a large door. Rias knocked on the door and a faint sound came from inside the room. Rias opened the door and the group stepped inside. The first thing that Naruto noticed was the large table. Sirzechs and Serafall had both taken a seat. There was some other blonde dude who Naruto assumed was the leader of the angels who had Arena standing behind him, and finally there was Azazel with Vali, who was leaning against a wall, accompanying him. Sona and her queen, Tsubaki, were also present. "Ria-tan. I'm glad you could make it." Sirzechs greeted his sister with a smile. "Good to see you too, Itachi, Naruto-kun." Naruto gave Sirzechs a bright grin and a thumbs up. The group was standing near the entrance, with Naruto standing in between Itachi and Rias. Naruto noticed that Arena was sending nervous glances towards Itachi every once in a while. Once he thought everyone was ready, Sirzechs clapped his hands together. "Now that everyone's present, we can start the summit," Sirzechs exclaimed happily. Azazel chuckled and leaned back in his chair. "First things first then." Azazel started as he looked at Rias and her peerage. "I assume the news about God's death leaked out during your little skirmish with Kokabiel." "You bet you it did," Issei growled. "Why didn't you do anything to stop Kokabiel? You're the leader of the fallen angels, right? Or did you actually want Kokabiel to fuck us all up?" Azazel chuckled once again, much to Issei's frustration. "Trust me, I had nothing to do with Kokabiel and his little plans. I actually prefer to meddle in any affairs unless it's necessary. But you don't have to worry about Kokabiel, he's locked up in the deepest and darkest corners of the underworld. He can't hurt a fly." I don't think I get all of this," Naruto said as he raised his hand. Pretty much everyone acted shocked when it was revealed that God's not here anymore, but why was it kept a secret in the first place? Michael sighed softly and decided to answer Naruto's question. We all feared the chaos that could follow if father's death would be announced. Other mythologies would have definitely seized their chance after the Great War if they knew that father wasn't here anymore. Michael explained with a small smile playing on his lips. Alright, enough about death. It's making me all depressed and stuff. Azazel said as he wiped a fake tear away. You guys all know what we came here for the treaty. It's finally some kind of damn progression since the Great War ended. But before we start signing contracts we will never lead the fine prints on the bottom of, let's get some opinions first. Azazel suggested. He didn't wait for an answer and just lifted his head back, looking at Vali lazily. So Vali. What do you think about peace? Azazel asked. Vali smirked and closed his eyes. I don't care what kind of state the world is in, whether it's chaos or peace. As long as there are strong opponents for me to fight I'm satisfied. Azazel smirked before turning his attention towards Issei. What about you, Red Dragon Emperor? Would you want peace between our factions? Issei looked at the ground, pondering over Azazel's question. It's a really difficult question for me, I don't think I can answer this straight away. Azazel rested his face on his hand. Let's look at it from a different perspective then. If there's war, all the women, no matter whether they are devils or angels, will have to go fight as well. No time for romances or anything like that. But when there's peace, all those beautiful and hot women are just waiting to be loved by a man. Issei's face brightened and he started to nod rapidly. Yes, peace. No doubt. I want peace. Peace is the best. He said quickly. Azazel laughed and spread his arms wide. It settled then. Rias sighed and slapped Issei's shoulder slightly. Issei please, can you at least try to control your tendencies during important times like these? The moment Rias touched Issei's shoulder however, everyone suddenly froze. Naruto and Itachi both raised an eyebrow when they realized the protective ribsages of their respective Susanoo had flared into existence. Vali's eyes widened to unbelievable proportions when he looked at the Susanoo and Azazel promptly fell of his chair. Naruto cursed in his head, Vali and Azazel had seen his Susanoo without the genjutsu that made it look like Madara's. He definitely was in trouble now. Azazel quickly stood up and marched over towards Itachi and Naruto. But how? Why? Those eyes. It seems time has frozen around us. Sirzechs concluded as he looked around the room. Apparently the faction leaders were able to withstand it thanks to our incredible power. The heavenly dragons and holy sword wielders could also resist it. Sirzechs turned his head towards Itachi and Naruto. It seems your eyes were able to protect you too. Rias looked at Issei with a grateful smile on her face. Thank you Issei. It seems your sacred gear has protected me as well. The blush crept upon Issei's face as he rubbed the back of his head. It's nothing but you, it's my job to protect you after all. Naruto narrowed his eyes and marched over towards the window, ignoring Azazel who was still fawning over his Sharingan. It looks like we're getting some more company. Naruto said gravely. Everyone turned their heads to see various magic circles in the air. People dressed in some kind of robes left the magic circles and proceeded to engage the soldiers of the three faction in battle. What are magicians doing here? Serafall asked in confusion. She then crossed her arms and pouted childishly. They're probably just jealous they can't be as fabulous as I am. I hate to break it to you, Sparkles, but those dudes and dudettes outside could probably care less about your fabulousness. Naruto told the Satan. He then turned around to look around the room again. There's only one person I know who can freeze time with his powers. Ah yes, the vampire wielding the forbidden Baylor view. Azazel said, having been snapped out of his Sharingan fanboy stupor by Itachi, who had promptly smacked him across the face. Issei's and Ria's eyes widened. That means Gasper and Kaneko are in trouble. Issei shouted. A determined look made its way to Ria's face. That means we'll have to rescue them. Brother, Issei and I are heading out to help Gasper and Kaneko. Rias told her brother. Sirzechs sighed deeply while he looked at the magicians outside. How are you planning on doing that? Someone cast a spell that nullifies our teleportation magic, we can't get you guys out of here no matter what. Rias smirked. I have an unused rook piece lying around in the old school building. I can simply teleport using that, there's no magic that can stop me. Sirzechs smirked as well. Clever girl. Then there's no time to waste, you should head out immediately. We'll take care of things here, so don't worry about that. Wait, I have a little gift for you. Azazel exclaimed as he threw two bracelets at Issei, who caught them. I assume you know about the balance breaker, right? If you use the bracelet you can enter yours for 15 minutes. I knew you had some little trouble achieving it, so I decided to help out. Azazel explained with a smirk. Give the other bracelet to the vampire, it will help him out with his sacred gear too. Issei nodded in both understanding and thanks before he and Rias were teleported towards the old school building by Sirzechs. Vali yawned and stretched his limbs. Oh well, I'll take care of the trash outside. It beats just standing here. Vali muttered before spreading the wings of his divine dividing and flying outside. Naruto was about to ask what he and Itachi could do to help, but the appearance of a magic circle. A woman stepped out of the magic circle, and Serafall seemed to recognize her immediately. "Itachi, what are you doing here?" Itachi laughed. "What am I doing here? I'm going to claim my rightful place as Leviathan, of course," she shouted as she looked at Serafall with hatred evident in her eyes. "You stole my place as a Satan, and you defiled the title even more by making peace with those pathetic angels and fallen angels. You're a disgrace to the devils." Serafall was about to retort, but Sirzechs put a hand on her shoulder, calming her down. Sirzechs looked at Kateria with narrowed eyes. "There's no need for us to fight, Kateria. If you scurry off now there will be no trouble for you." Kateria looked on amusedly. "And missed the chance to kill two dirty imposters. I'd rather not." Azazel laughed slightly as he gently pushed Sirzechs and Serafall aside. "You're really hurting me, acting like I'm not even here," Azazel said jokingly, making Kateria narrow her eyes dangerously. "Serafall, Sirzechs, allow me to deal with her. Allow me to assist you." Itachi's voice rang out as he made his way over towards Azazel. Azazel grinned, he would get the chance to kick and to see another Sharingan user fight. He certainly was a lucky man. "Very well, Itachi-san. I'll keep her busy in the air and you just spray her with any long-range attacks you have, alright," Azazel said as he spread his wings and flew up in the air, Kateria following in suit. Naruto glared at Itachi, who just looked back with an impassive look on his face. "Damn it, Itachi," Naruto shouted in anger. "I wanted to fight that bitch. What am I supposed to do now, just sit on my ass?" Itachi just kept looking at Naruto for a while before shrugging and redirecting his attention towards Kateria and Azazel. "Don't ignore me, you bastard," Naruto shouted, but Itachi didn't bat an eye. Naruto growled lowly before he looked back at the sky, seeing that Vali was still working his way through the magicians without much effort. "Vali," Naruto shouted. "Get your white dragon over here." Vali finished another magician off before flying back towards Naruto. What are you doing?" Vali shouted. Naruto had suddenly jumped on Vali's back. Even though Vali could easily carry Naruto while covered by his balance breaker, the sudden added weight had startled him slightly. "No, you should ask what we are going to do," Naruto corrected him. "And to answer your question, we're going to have some fun. Lots of fun." Meanwhile back in the underworld, the city of Lucifer to be more precise, Shalba Beelzebub was frantically parading through the palace of the old Satans. He had come to quite a fascinating discovery and could not suppress his excitement. "Shalba," Kurama said as he grabbed Shalba by his shoulders and started shaking him, trying to make him snap out of it. Shalba's manic grin didn't disappear from his features as Kurama kept shaking him. "Kurama, once we're at the summit, we're heading straight for the boosted gear," Shalba informed Kurama, having calmed down slightly. "But Kateria." "I don't give a shit about Kateria," Shalba almost screeched, startling Kurama. "Once we have the powers of the boosted gear, he will finally come back," Shalba said as he opened his palm, revealing a small black magic circle. Kurama's eyes widened. "Is that what I think it is?" Shalba's grin returned to his face. "Indeed. Today, we're going to show those imposters the true power of a Satan Yeehaw." Naruto laughed as he threw another Rasen Shuriken at the helpless magicians. He was currently sitting on Vali's back while the devil was in his balance breaker. Vali used his devil magic and the power of his sacred gear to destroy the magicians, while Naruto kept throwing Rasen Shurikens and used his Susanoo to protect himself and Vali from any attacks the magicians could send towards them. Vali laughed aloud as he fired another magic blast at a group of magicians. "There goes another one. I'm actually starting to enjoy this," Vali shouted. "A shame I'll have to betray Azazel and the others. I would have liked to fight along this man for a bit longer, he reminds me of Madara-san," Vali added as an afterthought. "Keep your head straight," Naruto yelled as he activated the ribsage of his Susanoo, shielding Vali and himself from a magic beam. "If I wouldn't have been here, you would be dead by now." Vali chuckled as he summoned a bunch of magic circles. "I'm sorry, I'm getting way too caught up in the fun we're having." Naruto smiled slightly. Even though he was a complete battle maniac, Vali was a pretty nice guy. He was relieved that Vali had yet to realize that he was actually Madara, but it didn't matter for now. The only thing on their minds was dealing with these magicians. Meanwhile, Kateria was not faring well against Itachi and Azazel. She already was at a disadvantage since Azazel's light spears were extremely dangerous to her, and the fact that Itachi was constantly shooting fireballs at her from below didn't help either. Even Ophis' snakes couldn't make a tiny bit of difference. "Enough," Kateria shouted as she extended her arm towards Itachi. He dodged her arm in response, and Azazel threw a light spear at it. Kateria let out a screech of pain as the light spear impaled her arm. Azazel flew back down to the ground and landed next to Itachi. You know, I would have used my sacred gear against her, but I don't feel like that will end well. Azazel said as he scratched his left arm. Why don't finish her off, eh? Itachi just nodded silently and went through a sequence of hand seals again. A stream of fire left his mouth and was aimed at Kateria. She used everything in her power to dodge Itachi's attack and extended both of her arms, wrapping themselves around Itachi. She was about to crush him, but Itachi burst apart into a flock of crows. Kateria's eyes widened as she felt herself getting impaled by various spikes. The only thing she could see were Itachi's eyes. It is futile, Kateria-san. You cannot resist the power of my eyes. Itachi's voice echoed through Kateria's head. She tried to free herself from the spikes, but it was to no avail. Suddenly the spikes disappeared and she looked down to see a light spear impaled into her stomach. She raised her head again and came to the side of a smirking Azazel. Perhaps you shouldn't always believe what you see, Kateria. Azazel said smugly before throwing another bunch of light spears at Kateria. She let out one final scream before getting torn apart by Azazel's spears. Azazel smiled contently before returning back to Itachi. Once Azazel had landed next to Itachi, he patted him on the shoulder. I have to thank you. Fighting her would have been a lot harder if you and your fancy eyes weren't here to help me. Azazel told the boy. Itachi nodded absent-mindedly, since he was busy watching Naruto and Vali finish off the last magicians left. Azazel noticed Itachi watching them and smirked. The long-eyeness combined with these deadly eyes, they certainly make a deadly and interesting duo, don't you think, Itachi-san? The two in question had united with Sirzechs, Serafall and Michael, since they were done with their fights. Naruto smiled as he saw Rias and her peerage approach them as well together with Irina. Zenovia and Irina had both worked out their troubles, and Issei and Rias had managed to save Gasper and Kaneko. Looks like Ophis had to send better men next time. Suddenly, Vali punched Naruto across the face, knocking him back slightly. Naruto grimaced, so Vali was about to reveal his true allegiance now. Azazel's eyes widened. Vali? Azazel shouted. What the hell do you think you're doing? I'm sorry, Azazel. Vali started. I'm simply doing my job. Vali then turned towards Issei and pointed at him. It is time for our fated battle, Issei. Are you ready to face your… Vali was interrupted by the appearance of another magic circle. Naruto, who was being tended to by Rias and Akeno after having been hit by Vali, sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. Goddamn magic circles, always interrupting everybody. Shalba and Kurama both stepped out of the magic circle, much to the surprise of the faction leaders. Vali's brows furrowed as he looked at the other descendants of the old Satans. What are you doing here? Vali asked suspiciously. Ophis only sent Kateria, you two aren't supposed to be here. Shalba chuckled. We're here for our own basines, Vali. Now since the magic circle is still there, you'd better make a quick escape or else your teammate is going to be pissed. Vali narrowed his eyes but approached the magic circle nonetheless. Before entering it, he looked at Issei for one last time. Don't think this is over. You managed to evade us this time, but our battle will come. Vali warned Issei before disappearing inside the magic circle. Shalba looked at Sirzechs with a smirk on his face and was about to start talking, but Kurama beat him to it. Where is Kateria? Kurama asked. Azazel laughed in response and wrapped an arm around Itachi's shoulders. Itachi-san and I made short work of her. I hope I didn't ruin your romance now. Azazel said in a taunting voice. Kurama's eyes widened in rage and he was about to charge at Azazel, but Shalba held his arm in front of him. Enough. Shalba said sternly. We're not here to kill you all, well at least not for now. Hand over the Red Dragon Emperor and your lives will be spared. Ria's eyes widened before she took a protective stance in front of Issei. What do you want with my servant? Shalba simply laughed in response. Foolish girl. You're messing with forces beyond your understanding. Shalba sneered before turning towards Sirzechs. Since you won't hand him over, I'll make you give him to me. Shalba held his hand in front of him, revealing the black magic circle on his palm. A scream of agony echoed through the area as Shalba fired some kind of dark energy towards Sirzechs. Sirzechs was about to set up a magic shield, but Naruto threw himself in front of him, taking the full force of the attack. Sirzechs and Itachi's eyes widened and Rias let out a horrifying scream. Shalba cursed as the magic disappeared from his palm. He could only use it one time and he had wasted it on some kind of pathetic human child. Shalba glared at Sirzechs before pulling Kurama and himself back into the magic circle. This is not over. Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes. That black shit had fucked him up good. What did he even shield Sirzechs from? He suddenly felt someone's arms wrap around him. I'm glad you're okay. Rias muttered as she almost crushed Naruto in her embrace. Naruto could hear Sirzechs laughing. Ria-tan, I think you're crushing him. Sirzechs said, making Rias release Naruto quickly. Naruto muttered a silent thank you. Damn, it even hurt to talk. Why did you save me from that attack, Naruto-kun? Sirzechs asked with a frown on his face. I could have perfectly defended myself against it. I don't know what kind of magic that was, but it almost killed you. Sirzechs informed the former shinobi. Naruto just grinned. I acted on impulse. Naruto managed to stammer out. I just didn't want you to get hurt. Rias-chan and Grayfia would be devastated if something happened to you. Naruto tried to sit up straight but felt a sharp pain going through his chest. Deciding that lying down was the best option for him, Naruto glanced around the room. It was his own bedroom, which meant that he was back in his apartment. The light was on and the curtains were closed, so it had to be late. Aside from Rias and Sirzechs, Itachi and Azazel were also present in the room. You're lucky that you survived, kid. Azazel said gravely. I know that damned magic all too well, it's a wonder that you're still alive. Princess over here tried to patch you up as best she could, and even I tried to help, but you would have been dead if not for that strange red energy saving you. Naruto's eyes widened. Kurama had used the little chakra he still had to save him. Now it would take even longer for Kurama's chakra to completely reform, but still, he had to thank the fox. We're going to discuss this issue in the living room further in the living room. Itachi said. Rias will stay here with you. Try to get some sleep in, you need all the rest you can get. Azazel, Sirzechs and Itachi proceeded to leave the room, leaving Rias and Naruto alone. Rias smiled down at Naruto and squeezed his hand tightly with her own. You idiot, throwing your life away like that, Rias muttered as a few tears rolled down her cheeks. Naruto squeezed Rias' hand reassuringly. Don't worry, I'm not planning on dying yet, that's a promise. Naruto drifted off to sleep, hoping to heal completely after he had rested. Unfortunately, he was unaware of the fact that the darkness of the magic that had hit him would still haunt him, even in his dreams. Omik. The true power of the wood release. After another long rigorous training session in the mindscape, Naruto and Madara decided to take a break. They sat down on the ground, and Madara was about to tell Naruto another story of the time he was still a loyal shinobi of Konoha. You see, Naruto, not many people actually know this, but Hashirama had a son. Madara told the boy. Naruto's face scrunched up in confusion. Really? He asked, making Madara snort. Of course, did you think that Tsunade woman just magically dropped out of the sky or something? Madara asked incredulously. Anyways, he had a son. What many people also don't know is that Hashirama's son could also use the famed wood release. But that's not all. The child had access to the true power of the wood release. Naruto leaned forward, intently listening to Madara. What could possibly the true power of one of the most legendary Kekkei Genkai in history? He could grow wheat plants. Naruto just blinked a few times, the information entering his mind. Awesome. The sound of a harp was heard as Madara activated the infamous flashback no jutsu. In the flashback, Madara was visiting the Senju compound. He, Hashirama and Hashirama's son were sitting in a circle inside the child's room, taking long drags from a joint the child had created. Hey Dad, look. Hashirama's son, who will now be referred to as Dankboy since Marax wasn't creative enough to think of a name, spread his puffy red eyes wide. I have the fucking Sharingan. Hashirama laughed slowly. You look like that bitch I gave my cells to yesterday. Bitches love my cells. Shut up, Hashirama. I'll fry you with my fire jutsu. Madara slurred. He looked more drunk than high. Shit's on fire, yo. Hey, Maddie Ajichan. Dankboy started. You know they call the sea blue, right? But what if the sea was green? Madara just kept staring deep into space as his mind was getting fucked up by Dankboy's question. Suddenly, Hashirama started laughing hysterically while shouting, Orochimaru used my corpse to satisfy his necrophilia constantly. Alright everyone, time for dinner. Mito's cheery voice rang out as she opened the door. When she came to the side of her husband laughing like maniac and Madara pondering over the color of the sea, her son had only one thing to say. Run, stupid, run. Story ends here. See you all again. Till then, enjoy your life with your loved ones. Hope you guys liked the story. Please let me know in the comment box. Did you enjoy it or not? It's time to say sayonara. Sayonara means goodbye.